We can't.
Well,
Yeah, that's right. That's the budget.
you. All right. All right. No, it's okay. Okay. Thank you all. We're coming back, not adjourning, coming back to open session. There was action the board took in closed session, which I will now read. Oh, I always jump on that one, so my apologies. I always want to do it right away. Okay, we'll start first with our land acknowledgement. Thank you, Dr. Knox. We'll start first with our land acknowledgement, as we do every meeting. We acknowledge that Ojai Unified is settled on unceded Chumash land. We honor and pay respect to the Chumash community and their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations, for the Chumash still exist today and will continue to exist. We hope this acknowledgement and our close relationship with the Chumash community continues to produce honest and respectful discourse about the history of this land, which ultimately helps strengthen the educational journey of Ojai Unified students. Thank you. Now we'll go on to our Pledge of Allegiance, our flag salute. If you're able to, please stand and face the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we'll go on to, as Dr. Knox said, our agenda item, the report out of closed session. If any action was taken, which I will now read. Trustee Reyes made the motion to approve the settlement agreement for non-OAH case number 1/25-26. It was seconded by Trustee Brainy, and the motion was carried 5-0. Thank you. Now we'll go on to agenda item 2.4, any emergency additions or modification to tonight's agenda. We do have a few, so let's start first with the meeting, the next November meeting. Trustee Halverson.
So I'd like to discuss possibly moving that meeting to the third Wednesday from the second Wednesday of November, because I will be, okay, whatever I had to say there. So add discussion of November meeting.
Give us one moment here while we figure out where it will go. Yep, 10.4. Okay, so that is a motion to create a new agenda item 10.4, which would be discussion and action of changing our November 2025 regular board meeting date.
Do we want to deal with December, since I'm not here on that date as well? If we can hammer that one out? Might as well, while we're talking about November. If we can't hammer it out, we can always wait till next month to try and hammer out. But let's add the December 15th board meeting as item 10.5. If we could, please. Fair enough. Fair enough, 10.4.
We'll say that
agenda.
in November, we always have to have that as an agenda item to set the December organizational meeting. So if anybody needs to look at their calendar, we could hold it over unless you want to get it over with.
Might as well get it over with if we can. If we can't, fine.
Okay, so that was a motion to add that item 10.4. Seeing if anyone has any, and there's exactly. So there was also modification on agenda item. Let me pull it up. It was the agenda item 10.2. It is a change in the on the item itself, it's correct, but just on the listing on the agenda, it reads board bylaw number 0410. That's not the correct bylaw. It is correct on the summary, which is 9150. So we're going to move to change that. on just on the agenda side, changing that from 0410 to 9150. Other than that, are there any other proposed changes to tonight's agenda? I don't believe there's any. Okay, we have
Need a new motion because it's now changed.
I would say yes. Trustee Smith, would you like to make the motion to
Sure.
incorporate all of those changes?
I move that we have an emergency addition to add the 10.4 to evaluate the November and December regular meetings. And then we have a yes, it'll be an action item. Correct, sorry. And then we're asking for a modification to the agenda to modify 10.2 to change within the title, the number, board bylaw number 0410 to be 9150. That's all.
What I heard. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Halverson. All those in favor say yes.
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 That passes 5-0. Tonight's agenda has been modified and approved. Now we'll go on to agenda item number 3 is approval of the minutes from last month's meeting. Any comments or questions or concerns from the board on the minutes?
There was a request for a minor modification to a sentence, but I would move that the minutes of the last meeting be approved.
A second?
Second by Trustee Brainy. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we have our agenda item 4, correspondence regarding important district matters. This is from BCOE, Ventura County Office of Education, just accepting and approving our budget and LCAP, which is, as always, a really, really big accomplishment. So thank you, Dr. Knox, and to everyone in the district involved in that for keeping us on the right path. Now we'll go on to agenda item 5.1. We have public comments. I think we might have a public comment here. Is it general? It's agenda item 8.1. Oh, Richard Bird. And we have a general one here from our very own former school board president, Jane Weil. Thank you for being here with us today, Jane. And then right after, her significant other, Mr. Mark Weil. Okay, Jane, as you know how it goes, you have 3 minutes once you begin. Welcome back.
Thank you. I won't take that long. I am just here on behalf of the Ojai Family Fund. I just wanted to announce to you that we have opened registration for our turkey trot, which is happening on the Nordhoff track on Thanksgiving morning. And if anyone's watching, they can go to ohighfamilyfund.org and sign up. And the funds from the turkey trot actually support the low and very low income foster and homeless youth students at Ojai Unified School District. So we really hope the community comes out, and it's turned into a big event. There was over 200 people last year.
What time?
8 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning, and it's a 3-mile fun run. You can run, walk, you can bring your dogs, you can bring your strollers, or you can really race, because this year we have an official timer, and we'll have chips on the bids that'll give you your real time. So we're going real school this time.
And just so the public knows, is there a suggested entry fee? And if so, what
There
is
is a
it?
suggested donation of $25 per person or $50 for a family.
That's 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Thanksgiving morning at Nordhoff High
At
School.
Nordhoff High School.
All funds go to help those in need in our community.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Specifically students at the university. So we help pay for AP tests, prom night, CME trips, grad night, those kind of things that are extracurricular events.
Do you have medical staff on site in case I pull a hamstring?
We don't. We do have water and oranges and some pies for the first finishers. Thank you for your time.
I normally am on staff, but I will be out of the country that day. So, I mean, I'm not on staff, but well, actually, I'd be out on the course. Maybe I would need help too. So.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jane, and welcome back. Now, Mr. Mark Weil, we know you have listed here for agenda item number 11. I'll use my authority as the president because I don't see any other public comments here. If you'd like to give it now. It's up to you. Okay, fantastic. All right, now we'll go on to our employee union president's comments. I don't believe I see CSEA President Jaylene Morrison here, but I do see our very own Ojai Federation of Teachers, OFT President Richard Byrd. Thank you for being here, Mr. Byrd. As always, you have 5 minutes once you begin. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everyone. I want to take a few minutes and talk about something that quietly shapes the culture of every school. And it's not our curriculum, it's not our schedules, but it's our conversations. Specifically, the differences between griping and grieving. We all know what griping sounds like. It's that hallway venting, the sighs in meetings, the can you believe they moments that we all fall into from time to time. It's human. It's a way to blow off steam. But over time, griping drains our energy and erodes trust. It can create a climate where frustration circulates more freely than hope and where problems feel permanent instead of solvable. Grieving, on the other hand, comes from a place of care. When we grieve something, we're naming a real loss, a student who didn't get what they needed, a colleague who's overwhelmed, a change that doesn't yet feel right. Grieving acknowledges pain, but it also opens the door to reflection, empathy, and action. Griping says, this is awful. Grieving says, this hurts and it matters. When we grieve, we stay connected to our purpose. We don't deny the hard things, we bring them into light and ask, what can we do differently? It shifts our mindset from blame to belonging, from complaint to care. Changing campus culture doesn't happen through slogans or memos. It happens in the moments between us, when we listen instead of react, when we bring a concern to the right place instead of the nearest ear, when we focus on solutions, not just sympathy. This isn't about silencing anyone's voice, quite the opposite. It's about amplifying voices that move us forward. When we grieve together, we build a culture where honesty and hope coexist, where it's safe to say, I'm struggling, and just as safe to ask, how can I help? So as we move through this year, let's challenge ourselves and each other to notice that when our words are fueling frustration instead of understanding, let's turn griping into grieving and grieving into growth, because healthy schools isn't one without problems, it's one where people care enough to face them together. Thank you.
Thank you, President Byrd, as always. Now we'll go on to agenda item. Give me one moment here. I should know this. Board members report. As always, I look to Trustee Smith if you have a report.
Well, each month we like to acknowledge the support that we receive from our community, and sometimes those contributions are big and you can see them, like the pool. And sometimes they're smaller and maybe affect one classroom or more, and the public doesn't really see them. But those acts of kindness are always present. I'm thinking about just today, as I was driving up here, I got a text message that OEF purchased $5,000 worth of tables and carts for Nordhoff. So those will be delivered soon. Our PTOs are always working with parents and finding ways to enhance the student life and teacher life on our campuses. In our report, we see lots of developer fees, and developer fees are when you're building a home, a business, or remodeling, and the school gets a portion of that, and those funds go to enhancing our buildings and properties to, accommodate additional students. In our packet, I noticed a volleyball fundraiser where parents and community members contributed. I notice a lot of facility rentals are happening, so are using our facilities in many ways other than in ways to support the students and the community. I noticed a $10,000 contribution from the Lutheran Church that supports Nordhoff athletics. I noticed Bonnie Lou's and other parents and cheer parents supporting a fundraiser that they held. And I think about A Place to Grow preschool, which people don't think of often, but those are parents who have young children that are before school age, even before our TKers. And so we provide services for them. I noticed the gridiron and the football sales at home games and away games. And back to the pool, I'm super excited about the fact that Topa Topa will be using the pool, I believe this Friday, for snorkeling lessons for sixth graders. So exciting. Um, and anyway, I also want to acknowledge that earlier this month, I participated in an event at Thatcher. So did administration and several of our board members. And we heard, we attended a meeting that was related to community, really private schools and public schools and how we collaborate. And Dr. Miguel Cardona, who was an educator and is the former US Secretary of Education, was the speaker. And it was really great to attend. And, you know, I'm certainly a district history buff. And think about this community and how those public and private relationships have occurred for so long. I think back to 1985 when the elementary school was first built on Ojai Avenue in our old district office property. And within that school, there really weren't very many high school students. So they actually attended a school down the street at the Lavender Inn. The brick house, about 4 students were attending, got up to about 12 students who attended that second story in that Victorian building, if you've ever seen that. And then in about 1909, Sherman Thatcher, who actually started his school in 1889. So 10 years later, he's on the board of a newly developed high school district in Ojai, seeking educational opportunities for public school students. And so those connections have been happening for all these years. I think people too often jump to think that there is a competition between public and private schools in this valley, but the truth is that we enhance each other. And that's one of the things that Dr. Cardona said that hit me, and that was that we have a unique opportunity really in this valley to enhance the support and the programs that we already provide to all of the students that live in this valley. And it's something that isn't available everywhere in California. So I'm looking forward to ways that we can enhance that in our valley. And that's it. That was a lot, sorry.
No, perfect. Perfect, Trustee Smith. Thank you for the update. And yeah, it was a really interesting conversation. Trustee Moncharsh.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
I want to share 2 things. Number one, I had a chance to catch the homecoming night football game. Homecoming's always really fun because it's not only a good football game, but you get to see, of course, the homecoming court. Nordhoff ASB puts together a great float celebration, and then it's always beautiful and fun to see the youth cheerleaders cheer with the Nordhoff cheerleaders as well. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out to everyone involved in that. It was a really, really fun night, and Nordhoff won 55-14. So Nordhoff football is on a 5-game win streak, and they really are something. So just huge congratulations. Can't wait till we get the stadium built. But I know we're getting there. But just what a fun night. And then the second thing I'd like to share, I actually would like to take a moment to read this from one of our teachers. I won't say from who, but I think this is just really powerful about the work that all of our staff does, and maybe even members of our staff that don't always get recognized. And I just like to take a moment to read this. And I apologize if I get any name mispronounced, but I think what's important here is to give a spotlight. This is from the teacher. Writing to share my appreciation for our tech department. David, Kevin, Rochelle, Gary, and Jake. Each one has contributed to my sense of working with a thoughtful team. Kevin came in to help with my request to survey my classroom tech before I set anything on fire, the teacher puts in quotation marks, and had tremendous suggestions to keep everything up and running smoothly. Jake has been working since this summer to solve my ongoing studies weekly single click, once again in quotations, mystery, and now we're at the perfect solution. Rochelle and Gary have heard my tech issues, small and large, and always asked and looked to dig deeper to find the complex cause versus stopping with the easy. David is always in to discuss campus beautification and how we can keep adding to Nordhoff Junior High. It would be really great if they got a shout out. They serve many rooms and questions. It would be fun to hear how they've impacted our district this year. I think you'll hear a lot of positives from teachers and students across the board. So I just want to take a moment to really thank everyone who helps keep these schools running, and especially our tech department, who also helps us. So thank you all. That is my update for now. Trustee Alverson.
Nothing tonight.
Trustee Brainy. Got it. Superintendent Knox for your superintendent's report.
So I just wanted to briefly talk about two things. One is just to sort of remind everybody that we had the wonderful Aquatic Center grand opening on Saturday the 27th. It was a wonderful event celebrating that accomplishment that our community brought us through passing the measured K bond. We had, luckily, the YMCA there to run some lifeguarding so that we could open swim for free. And we had lots of people from the community come and enjoy the pool. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the future community use of the pool, because I know that's a very hot topic that the community is eager to learn about. And I just wanted to broadly share, one of the things that we do as school districts is, of course, we receive funding, and that funding has to be used towards the mission of our school, which is educating our students. So when it comes to running the community use portion of the pool, we really can't be the ones running that portion, especially because typically those kind of programs operate at a loss. And so we really need a partner who is willing to run and operate that side of the pool. But we want the community to know that the facility is open. There are lots of hours that we've identified that could be used for community use. And now we are trying to work to find that partnership. We are in good collaborative conversations with the city and the YMCA right now. So we are very hopeful that that partnership will result in some open swim times very soon. But ultimately, we're not at a place yet where we have agreements. And so we're not at a place yet where we can announce to the public any open swim times. But we want everybody to know that we are working on it. Those conversations are happening. And so we are interested in that partnership so that we can bring open swim time to the pool. So hopefully the community knows that we're working hard on that. And we wish it was open now, but we just have some more hurdles to jump through. So I also just wanted to say that Monday is a non-student day. It's our second professional development day of the year. PD days are my favorite days of the year. It's when all staff comes together and we offer different training and supports. In this particular October event, we've brought back our Years of Service Awards, and we announce our faculty and staff who have worked for our district for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and so on. And so it's a fun celebratory day combined with a lot of good training and professional development opportunities. So thank you to all of our parents and families who will have their kids at home that day. It's a really important day for us as staff to regroup and use it to train. So that's what we're going to be doing on Monday.
Thank you, Dr. Knox. And man, that pool is gorgeous. So thank you once again to everyone who played a part in that one. And a huge, huge thank you to the Ojai community for approving Measure K in 2020 that funded it. So look what we can do when we build stuff together. Now we'll go on to our consent calendar. This is agenda item 6, as always. Look to the board. Does anyone have any questions, concerns about the consent calendar? I usually look to Trustee Moncharge.
It's been addressed by the superintendent, but just in a couple of things we received, we didn't have a full list of all the chaperones for the various field trips. So we just need to make sure we have that. So that's the only comment I have. It's on 6.9. And just so you all know, 6.10, the first one was our renewed attorneys' contracts with AALRR. I've reviewed the version that's attached here. It is the version that I negotiated with them a couple of months ago that they've already approved. So it's perfectly good to go.
Thank you, Trustee Moncharge. And as always, thank you for being our negotiator when we need you. Any other comments, concerns from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve tonight's consent calendar?
I'll move to approve.
So moved by Trustee Smith. Is there a second? Second by trustee Halverson. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we'll go on to our first presentation of the night, agenda item 7.1, our facilities budget overview. I'll turn it over to Mr. Kevin Olson.
All right, thank you. So as requested by the board, now that in September we closed our prior year books, and so we have our beginning fund balances for all of our funds, but for tonight we're really looking at our facilities funds. So Measure K. The first document here that was provided is a reconciliation from how we get to the starting balance of the current year of 11.7 million and change. It includes a summary of the activity to date. Again, very similar to the summary that's monthly provided to the board as the Measure K summary, just a little bit different format. So the monthly format is kind of by object code. So that's what type of expense it is. This is by project. So you can see the projects that have been funded so far this year. Again, encumbrance, expenses, total. And so that gets us to the bottom line, which is about 4.8 million. That flows through onto the top line of our bond project worksheet. There we go. So I imagine that the bond project worksheet, we have our Measure K money. So again, it flows through at the top of the Measure K column. You'll see that 4.811, right? So that reconciles to the bottom of the other page. So that's how much cash we have left in Measure K as a snapshot in time, right? So that cash is always, that fund balance, remaining fund balance is always changing a little bit and is slightly different from the summary document that you have in the report in a different part of the item. Slightly different because they were snapshots taken on a different day, okay?
This is from the final tranche of funds that were sold within the last 6 months, right?
Yeah, this is all cash in the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the end of the authorization. We cannot sell any more Measure K bonds. And this is how much money we have left. We've basically, so that's how much money we can essentially consider for the projects that we still have on our list. On this report, I've also included Fund 40, which is where we placed our clean energy rebate that we received late last year from the IRS. And I've also included on here Fund 250, which is our developer fees fund, because both of those are available for facilities use. And so they're within the matrix here of how we fund our projects. And I also want to say that, nothing here is set in stone. This is just a discussion tonight, and it's just an example of how administration is considering moving forward with the potential Measure K projects that were identified in the past, and also new projects that are constantly popping up, such as electrical transformer replacements or weight room remodel requests, or again, we've talked about last year, towards the end of last year, the football field, the turf being kind of rejuvenated, replaced, reseeded, something like that, right?
The grass.
The
grass.
Yes, turf, grass, yes.
So I'll make that clear because
Turf, yeah. So sewer lines, all these things. So this is an example of how we could fund out of the different pots of money that we have. We could fund these different pieces, but also just, and this is conversational tonight, this is just data, but want to make sure that the board understands, as we stand today, the stadium is our highest priority. It's the biggest project still remaining for Measure K. And as you can see, at budgeted around 3.5 million, it's a substantial amount of the remaining $4.8 million in that account. So, and it's not technically under contract yet, so that 3.5 is just an estimate. It could be, plus or minus 20% probably. So really, we have to get that under contract the couple of major contractors in that project, because we know we've already talked about doing a multi-prime contracting for that project and bringing on a CM to kind of help us with that, which again, we talk about later. But when we start getting particularly the bleachers from Southern Bleacher, when we figure out that number, we have that number, then we'll really be able to start putting more pieces definitively in motion to get more projects completed.
And to remind people, that continues to be crawling through DSA, and we cannot start to get those estimates until DSA has approved the project so it can go out to bid.
Correct.
So this is not our holdup.
Correct. Yes, there's a number of small questions remaining from DSA. Answers have gone in. They've come back with small questions, little pieces. There's just a couple of technical pieces to this project that are geological engineers and structural engineers and DSA are all kind of going around in a circle on a little bit. But every time they go around in a circle, they get smaller, the problems get smaller, and we're real close. So we also had to, I don't know if we talked about this on that project yet or not. I don't remember if I mentioned it at the last board meeting on the update, but because of the placement of the bleachers and that they were sit on a substantial foundation, and this is really the crux of the issue, DSA was concerned about the light poles. So we had to go back and look at the engineering of the light poles. So those were put in 1974. So it took some work to dig up the drawings and the DSA approvals and to even read those documents that were kind of crumbly and hard to read at this point. But we've got a lot of that taken care of at this point. We were very close to getting DSA approval on that project. So are there any other questions? Again, I know we have an update. We have a lot of this kind of throughout the meeting. So we have technically an update on the stadium project later on. Mr. Haslam can talk about it a little bit, and I'm happy to chime in at that point. So we are kind of just talking about globally the funding and the different projects that are ahead of us.
You want just questions or you want comments?
Yeah, we could take both. Let me just say,
yeah.
Let me just say real quick before we have comments and questions about it. Again, this is a format, so it'll kind of always be changing. Administration wants to take a very measured approach to funding projects. We do know that both of those kitchens, Nordhoff and Miramonte, are actually finished with DSA. We met with with the architect this morning to go over the plans, and so those are technically ready to bid. I do think that it would be prudent to start moving forward with the Miramonte project because of the relatively lower cost and risk involved. And if the other projects go over, we'll still have enough money for that project. But beyond that, I wouldn't suggest we take on the Nordhoff project right away. And then we could consider some of the other smaller projects or other pieces. I would say of the other pieces, it does appear that the Nordhoff electrical transformer replacement we would suggest that we go ahead and move forward with working on that project. So after that, I'm happy to entertain questions and comments.
We'll start first with questions. Trustee Alverson.
You answered my question about how did those two up on top actually get there, and it's because they've been approved by DSA, but not approved by the board to move forward at this point.
Correct.
And I think I just have two quick questions. And the first one, I figured it out, but in case there's people wondering at home. So on the right side, all of those numbers throughout the rows on the right are the costs and where they could potentially come from the funds.
Yeah, so the only one that's split funded is that Nordhoff kitchen where the 1.3 and the 1.7 equal the 3 million estimated cost. That's the only one that's split funded. But yeah, so I've placed the cost in an appropriate column for funding.
Just wanted to clarify that for folks at home who were curious. And then my question on the Miramonte kitchen, and it might need to be answered way later down, but since it's also a smaller cost, does that also mean it will be a smaller, less intensive project, or is it a full?
Yeah, the time frame of that project is, again, we were just talking with the architect this morning. I will warn the board so that it's not a shocker when it comes back. You know, I think that cost estimate was a number of years ago. We do have escalation, so I wouldn't be surprised if that project ended up closer to $1 million, but still a smaller project. Yeah. Got that information this morning from the architect, but it was estimated to be a 4 to 5 month project. So we would start it right towards the end of the school year and then finish just towards the beginning, just into the start of the next school year.
Thank you. Questions?
So then the items that have allocations next to them are the are staff's priorities or the suggestion of the priority. Is that right?
Correct.
So, okay.
Well,
So if I'm
yes.
looking at Summit parking lot expansion and it doesn't have anything because it doesn't seem like it would be a high priority, that's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
It was so that the center section are items that were in the original Measure K needs assessment and on the original list. So that's why they're in that center section, still under yellow. But we haven't funded any of those right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. And looking first at what was just mentioned, Summit and San Antonio, those 4 items. I'd actually like to maximize what we have remaining for Measure K and suggest that those projects, if they're even done, be paid out of Fund 40 instead of Measure K, because Fund 40 receives the rents on the leases or on the license agreements, I should say. And, you know, in my mind, those monies that are already dedicated to programs using those facilities would be a good way to spend those funds. And I already spoke to Mr. Olson about the Matilaha Auditorium encumbrance, and I feel like that should be over in the developer fee, the 250 fund versus the 40 fund, because those fees are specifically like for expansion kind of programs, major maintenance kinds of programs, and those funds are limited to those areas. So that's just a thought. And I completely agree that the electrical transformer replacement should probably be priority number 2 on our list.
This is for discussion tonight. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here again, but now maybe I'm going to ask Trustee Smith to better explain Fund 40. I actually thought that 1.27 was the microgrid rebate.
It is.
So,
It
oh, it
really
is.
is.
Oh, okay. So that it actually has been put in, because there was a question from another trustee of where is that? So it actually is there. So can you, I understand developer fees, obviously Measure K. Can
there-
either one of you
yeah,
just tell me what
probably
Fund
Mr.
40 is?
Yeah. Probably Mr. Olson could do that better than I do.
Exactly.
How does money get into Fund 40 and what can it be
That
used
is the
for?
rebate. That's the only money that's in there right now.
Okay, and what can Fund 40 accept and what can it pay for?
So it's a special reserve for facilities funds. It's great for, you know, we received a notice today of a large donation as well for a facilities project. I don't know, that would probably make it to the next board meeting. I'm sure it'll make it on the donations list the next board meeting, but something that board members were helping with and administration asked for. It was the check for the scoreboard. We received $70,000. Yes. So it's okay. So, but
We'll wait. We'll wait.
So, but that's a great,
Exciting.
but Fund 40 would be a great place to put that in, and then we'll take the expenses out of that. That way it's not commingled with bond money, because throughout the bond account is audited very closely, and we want it to reconcile exactly to the authorization, the bond sales, and there's the revenue, and that's the only revenue that goes into the bond fund, and then the expenses reconcile to that. We start putting other money in there because of donations or other pieces, and it gets very muddied and hard to pull apart. So
And remember, we made Fund 40, right? We
Yes,
passed
we-
a resolution to create Fund 40 for this exact reasons.
so it's a flexible special facilities reserve.
We allocated, what, $100,000 into it, and
Originally.
of that 100,000, we've already spent or encumbered 89,000 and change, I think it is,
Correct.
Yeah.
on the feasibility study and the architects and all that kind of stuff.
And I just want to jump in here because we're doing a good job. We have questions, but I just want to also save the Matilah Auditorium. We do have an item for that, so let's save discussion to
That's
that
right. That
item.
comes up next. And in that item, we recommend the developer funds be used for that. And it's just not that way on this chart.
No,
Easy
totally,
fix.
totally.
Yep.
So that's
Easy
why I
fix.
just wanted to make sure we were going to save that discussion before we get to there.
Nope.
Trustee Moncharsh had some. Sorry,
Nothing is
Mr.
permanent on here, so
Yeah.
yeah, we'll just switch that around.
Here's my comment. Two comments. One, I'm more than willing to sit down with you and see how we can juggle funds from one place to the other. I've been doing it already all afternoon. But the overriding comment is, with the $265,000 parking lot paving and expansion at Summit, which not only appears on this list, but appears on the next page under the same amount, et cetera. My suggestion would be that we put that one way back in abeyance, because that's the property we're going to have the Fire Safe Council tramping in, over, and around for up to the next 2 years, figuring out suitability for the resource center, doing all the stuff they're going to be doing, et cetera. I suggest we just don't do that project at all for that period of time, and that frees up $265,000 to do some of these other things. So that was going to be the comment I was going to make.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Moncharsh. Any other comments? We're kind of in discussion period right now for this. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to agenda item. Give me one moment here. Of course, agenda item 7.2, approval to encumber $750,000 in developer fee funds for matching funds and career technical education, CTEFG, application for Matilah Auditorium. Dr. Knox, take it away.
Yeah, I'll get us started and then turn it over to Mrs. Kim Hoy. Just want to tee her up to make sure the audience knows that she is our Career Technical Education TOSA. So part of her Career Technical Education TOSA, Teacher on Special Assignment.
Oh.
And so a portion of her day is spent teaching, of course, teaching dance, and another portion of her day is spent really doing the administrative work to oversee all the career technical education grants. And there are multiple grants that we write for every year. Kim takes the lead on all of it, and she recruits members to support her and help write. But really, she's the lead to all those. And then there is quite a bit of oversight as far as reporting and collection of evidence and those sorts of things. So it's quite a lot of work. She has been paying close attention for quite some time to see when a facilities grant for CTE might come from the state again. And so I'm sure she'll announce more, but this is the first time in many years that there is an availability to write a facilities grant. It is a competitive grant like the rest of them. So there's a chance that we might not get it, but as you all know, we do pretty well most times when we write our grants. So we're hopeful that this could turn out to be positive. So we're excited about the opportunity. It's always great when you can get matching funds to leverage the state's funds to do some work. Clearly, the auditorium is in need of a substantial amount of work. So with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim to do the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction as well. I want to just acknowledge and appreciate your time tonight. I will make my effort to be as clear and succinct as possible and hold time for questions. I am very thoughtful that we are fortunate to be able to even be in the position that we could even consider sending an application. As Dr. Knox mentioned, I was actually waiting and waiting and waiting, not only for the state to issue this potential for funding, but also for our readiness as a district to take on some of what you'll get to hear more about tonight. So number one, thank you. And if whoever's in charge of the slides can advance them to the next slide. So first of all, talking a bit about what is this grant? It is the Career Technical Education Facilities Program grants. This is actually the 7th cycle of grant funding, and it has been available through a specific proposition, Proposition 2. Bear in mind, it is competitive. We have to do our due diligence to not only compete, but also compete against districts of similar sizes. So for example, I've done the math and I know that there could be allocations of up to 100 grants or more, depending on what people apply for. As an example, also some school districts submit multiple grants and get multiple funded grants. So for example, in a past round of funding, a very large school district I'm aware of received 7 of these grants for their sites and actually hire and bring in grant writers. So I just mentioned that to you so you understand the substantial effort it is to make this happen, but also the potential for it to be transformative. And I'm excited about that. I also want to mention, in case someone's not aware, that I did have a history. 2 years I left the district between 2017 and 2019. And during that time, I served as the coordinator of special programs in Santa Barbara Unified. And while I did not write a CTEFP grant for them, I was present for the authoring of 2 grants in that particular district, one at Dos Pueblos and one at Santa Barbara High School. So I've had the opportunity to see the development of the work in action and understand a bit of the dynamics about the competition involved. So setting our expectations accordingly. The RFA was released in late May, and we did an initial walkthrough with district leadership in July. And I want to just acknowledge Cheryl and Kevin, as well as David, because we just walked in with like, let's dream big. Let's see what we might be able to do. And of course, you know, as someone who's been in the facility for many, many years, directing a number of shows, I could have a laundry list that's super, super long. And I want to acknowledge that actually our dance company students are watching this live right now, and they're probably thinking, oh yes, Mrs. Hoy, we have a wish list too. So we really tried to look at it from a student perspective. And with that in mind, we can go ahead and advance to the next slide. I want to give a shout out to David Rogers because he was able to find the original drawings from 1929 and 1937. And we learned some pretty special things, which I'll go into in a moment. But it's important for us to keep in mind that for a modernization project, we can apply for up to $1.5 million. It requires a 1-to-1, meaning for every dollar that we write for, we must have pledged, not necessarily in hand, but pledge the funds to match that. So it's an opportunity for a community to step forward and to say, this is a priority. And we'll get back to that more in just a moment. Do know that we're talking about multiple phases, so it is a more complex grant. In fact, I brought the pile of the initial RFA. It is really fat, and I've read it like 3 times through, and I can tell you, if I can't answer a question for you tonight, I will help you get the answer. But do know that the Division of the State Architect, of course, is involved within the phase 2 of the grant process. I also do want to just kind of give a shout out to UCSB Theater and Dance. We have had an ongoing collaboration with them for the last several years. Partly, it's come sort of naturally because of my own daughter's connection to the university there as a 2023 grad, but also their lighting humans have been our lighting designers for our dance concerts. And we now have a situation where we can call them, we can even FaceTime with them and say to them, hey, could you help us figure out a solution? They helped us light the homecoming rally, for example. So we're really fortunate, and I do want to mention that it's through that relationship that we were able to have the design drawings and really the renderings, they're just an initial version of what might be possible, designed by Batten and Light Studio out of Santa Barbara. So Tom Cowdery and Michael Clares donated their time on the front end to do the renderings for us. So I do want to acknowledge that tremendous gift of their time. The truth is Michael Clares is married to a UCSB theater professor who was my daughter's professor. So they're very, very thoughtful and generous. And I think they see how much the space is beloved. That was something that's really become very clear in the work we've been up to. You can go ahead and advance the slide. So a couple of key things. The history here, you have to keep in mind, you know, as someone here in in the 21st century. Imagine what life was like 100 years ago. And it was the era of horses and carriages. And we've often wondered, if you're standing off of stage right, why is there that side door and it's up so high you can't get to it? And then our theatrical architect said it's because horses and carriages were brought up to that area. And it wasn't like you could pull up your Model T Ford, right? You couldn't throw in those set pieces. You'd need to really come up with a way to get them up to that level. So understand that we were sort of learning about how to fall in love with the building in a different kind of way. The theatrical architects actually climbed up into the rafters and we're looking at some pretty key things. So for example, first of all, it was designed by Roy C. Wilson. Some of you may know that name as being an individual who has done quite a bit of design work throughout Ventura County. He has long since passed on, but he was from Santa Paula. So he was from Santa Paula, exactly. So the key thing that we were kind of struck by was that the roof line actually was higher. Between 1929 and 1937, the roof line was much higher and in fact could have accommodated a fly system nowadays if we still had that. However, it was lowered. The 1937 plans show that it was lowered, but in some ways that actually helps us. In 37, there was the installation of steel roof trusses, cross braces, turnbuckles to really reinforce the building. There was an earthquake in Long Beach in 1933, which we learned about. And so we recognize probably that was the prevailing thinking at the time. So this modernization project is not to raise the roof, even though the dancers would be like, yeah, raise the roof, right? Really, we have to look at the fact that the building is in really good condition in terms of its bones. It's that the flesh, so to speak, on the bones is really not at industry standard. That's what we're looking to address. Also, there was no heat in the building. I think that was pretty interesting to learn that. And that's not a great place to be cold. I've been cold in the building and I don't recommend it. And I'm sure students don't either. So we're grateful we have HVAC. Thank you for that. We can go ahead and move forward. So you might be wondering why we were thinking about this particular location. Certainly there's concern about the history of using this space. Old broken lights, some of the lights date back to the 1950s and 60s that are in there. So those that do work that are not broken are heavy. So we think about that as a concern in terms of safety and the potential for those to fall on students. But also they use significant electricity. And so when we're thinking about ways to modernize, we want to be considerate of our use of various amounts of power. Ultimately, the lighting we have requires somebody's got to climb up on a ladder. We don't send students on ladders. So if you can imagine, we can't really get students deeply involved in the work. We can say, stand here and hand a light up, but the opportunity to help program the lights is really difficult given that. For example, we could envision a future where all of the lighting is LED lighting and no one climbs on a ladder. Everything's programmed from the board. Everything that you want color-wise can be designed. And it just the opportunity for creativity for students, whether that's the choreographers or student directors or potentially animators. We'll talk about that. There's a lot that this opens up. Also, the concern about the fabrics in the space. Some of those fabrics have not been replaced in over 20 years, and so we want to be sure that fabrics are at fire code and are safe. The theatrical architects asked me to take a little swatch off of the actual fabric on one of the curtains and go home and light it on fire, which I did, and it doesn't burn out fast enough. And so it took 30 seconds for it to stop burning, just to give you that as an example. They said that should be out within 3 to 7 seconds as a comparison. In addition, the acoustics in the space leave a lot to be desired. Audience members and performers are not always hearing the music in a manner that is consistent. So for example, some of the renderings indicate the potential for time-aligned speakers. For example, if you come to a dance concert these days, we've got these really big speakers in the front and speakers on the stage. It is good for the performers, but not so great for the audience because it's really loud. And so the ability to calibrate from a soundboard that is at industry standard is a great opportunity to teach students about that. I also want to mention, we know that this facility is beloved by the community. There is a significant benefit beyond the school district that any kind of upgrade could have. And for the first time ever, we have, district staff on site. So thinking about the potential to have check-in procedures and checkout procedures and accountability around the use of the facility so that there's no gotchas, no surprises for district staff. I won't spend too much time on that, but there is some history of sometimes not having consistent care for the facility, and it really deserves that. It's a beautiful space, so we just want to make it better. And then the big thing for us from a CTE grant is, can we provide opportunities for students to learn technical skills and to be able to take those forward for potential employment? I could spend a whole lot of time talking about that, but I won't go too far into it at the moment. I do want to acknowledge that the data up here, I personally went through the calendars from the last couple of years as well as Facilitron. You'll notice there's an asterisk on 2025-26, and that's just because those reservations that you see there were provided in Facilitron. And I just want to say that's as of 2 weeks ago when I first was working through the data. That's without anything else that's already going to populate. And I do think the access to Facilitron will probably enhance and increase the potential for the facility to be used. So I did want to name that and specify that. All right. So you have this beautiful rendering, and I will mention there are multiple pages of renderings really from different perspectives. And really what's essential is to acknowledge the project scope. So for example, I worked with the theatrical architects to try to put most of this in layperson's language. At the same time, I will honor that I didn't necessarily know what a cyclorama was, so I want to make, and I know that now, and I've known that for years, but I would say the average person's not going to know that. So I want to briefly touch on a few of these things, knowing that we will have a community meeting October 22nd and really go into depth. But understanding that when you see soft goods under number 3, that refers to curtains. So the current soft goods really need to be addressed as a safety factor. Beyond that, being able to look at the upgrade of sound in this space and also the existing house lighting. So if you're an audience member and you're sitting in the audience and you're waiting before a show, it's pretty dim and dark in there. In fact, the original lights, the 4 lights that we have up there are the original lights from 1929. And actually 2 more of them were removed to accommodate the implementation of the catwalk at some point, we think in the 70s or maybe the 60s. We think those 2 lights are somewhere else in the space. We do not want to diminish any of the historical aesthetic. There is discussion about the potential, for example, to put better lamps that are LED lamps and to have them on the ability to raise the light and to take it down, for example. And then also you'll see some of the suggestions about addressing issues with sound regarding speakers. And then also the acknowledgement that the current catwalk position, again, if you're not familiar with the catwalk, it's if you're sitting in the audience and you look up, you're going, oh, wait, there's that bank of space that folks can access and install lights. In fact, the angle of those lights, it's very difficult to actually make that accessible. So it's a little hard to explain, but if you could imagine, you have to broaden the scope of that wide enough, and I know, Jim, you know what I'm talking about here, in order for it to actually be effective. It's not a very effective placement. If you were to go to UC Santa Barbara or any other, let's call it post-secondary spot for theater, what you would see is that their catwalks are not installed like that. They actually have the ability to drop them, add lights down on the ground, and then lift them up. And so there is discussion about the potential to include that, but at a closer location, that would be really more effective for the lighting of the space. So again, I could spend my entire presentation on this, and I'm trying to hold myself back, but I'm trying to hit some of the big ones. We also don't want to take out the existing catwalk. That's just an expense that's not worth pursuing. And at the same time, you might see the word under number 14, acoustician. That's a mouthful, but there are actually folks from industry who specifically will come into the space and address the acoustic needs. It was quite entertaining to see our theatrical architects walk around clapping to try to identify, oh, that sound, does it travel appropriately? And they were like, no, 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 no. It is not traveling appropriately. So we definitely have some need to address there. Additionally, looking at the control area, they look at, for example, our existing lighting board, which is relatively new, and say that that is really a really appropriate lighting board, but we need to be able to, for example, have the appropriate lighting to go with it. In addition, if you can imagine for our industry partners or community members who use the space, many of them are bringing lights in all the time. And the effort to do the install, put it up, take it down, it results in a lot of challenges. And I just say that myself, given what we do between dance and theater, and I'm sure with the musical as well. So again, you could look at this in great detail. Again, I'm happy to answer questions. If you scroll to the following slide, you'll also see that these are various views from different locations within the auditorium. So one of the concerns that has been raised is the nature of how this seating was planned. Should the fundraising effort and the allocation effort allow for it, there is some discussion about the potential to make some adjustments to the nature of how the seating is planned. So currently, for example, there are some parts of the space where if you sit in a seat and someone tall sits in front of you, you're having to lean really far over rather than the seating being staggered appropriately. So that is a conversation point as well. You also might notice that there are some really nice little designs with some of our logo on the side, and those really are meant to address the acoustic needs. So for example, the curtains that are in the house currently are covering up some windows that are there. I wouldn't be surprised if those are the original windows that date back to 29 or maybe 37. But naturally, the need to address acoustics would address the issue about what covers those windows, because those may or may not be beneficial for the sound of the space. We can go on to the next slide. This is a view looking from above. And for example, one of the things I wanted to call out here was the nature of what you see on the stage. So if you think of the stage being on the far left, one of the concerns for performers is that currently, you see where those little boxes are? There are 3 on stage left, 3 upstage, and upstage meaning closer to the back wall, and then 3 on stage right. Those represent electrical outlets. And we currently have situations where we don't have floor pockets. So those electrical outlets, when someone is trying to walk in as a performer, they have to walk around it. And we have to tape it down and put a whole bunch of like, don't step here. But as you can imagine, it's dangerous. And we definitely need to address that concern as an example. But this gives you kind of a good sense of some of the changes and the locations of those changes. And then there is a key at the bottom, most of which is distinctive. It also, this view, however, calls out the side. You'll see that side door down closer to what is the parking lot, and it acknowledges, hey, that's where the horse and buggy used to hang out. We'd like to see an appropriate lift placed there so that it could really be accessible for larger set pieces that folks need to bring in, or equipment, rather than having to go up a bunch of stairs and contort your body and do all the things that make us look great, but are hard to accomplish and not always safe. Please.
Or if I might add, have kids throwing things off the stage down to you to put away at the end of certain shows, which I've got several bumps on my head.
I wouldn't be surprised. Not surprised at all. We can go on to the next slide. This is an acknowledgement of where those lamps exist. You can see where the 4 dots are. Those were and are the original lights. The theory is that the catwalk took out those other 2 lights, but there's also a plan, an intention to add recessed LED lights in addition to that, so that we have appropriate lighting, especially in the case of emergencies. There was some discussion about this situation not being safe for participants who come as audience members. If we ever had an emergency, we need those lights to go up quickly, and we would not get them up very quickly given the current state. Go ahead and shift forward. And then we have this very beautiful final sort of perspective on what it might look like. It was pretty magical to see the theatrical architects say, what color would you like this to look like? And I said, let's go blue for Nordhoff Junior High and High School. So with that, I do want to make sure to tell you a bit more about the process so that we can acknowledge that. You can go on to the next slide. This is just another view of what it might look like with that additional catwalk, but it's no longer a catwalk, it's a drop bar that would be closer to the front of the stage. We can move forward here. So kind of to summarize, imagine that all LED lighting would be hung as a house hang, and so folks would not have to bring in other lights. And at the same time, all lighting would be controlled at the lighting board. It's safer, it reduces liability. It also eliminates most of the need for ladder use unless there are adjustments that would need to be made, but we would expect primarily that not to be a factor. It gives us the opportunity to update our electrical capacity, lower the use of energy. There's no greater panic than the director who has shorted out the power. I have had that experience. And then the updated acoustics, that certainly would improve the audibility of the space for the performers as well as for the audience. And then also the access for offstage, right, for heavy equipment and safer floor space, because we like that. We think that's good. And with that, we can go on just to think about it from the big picture perspective. I want to offer that we all know that we are in the game of enrollment when it comes to keeping our programs robust. The distinctiveness of our performing arts programs, including our digital media program as part of visual arts, we offer something really special here in the Valley. However, we also have to keep ourselves at industry standard. And this has been long in coming. I don't think I'm telling anybody anything they don't already know in terms of how important it is. But I do feel like with the robust use by the community and the potential to attract new families to the district because of the quality of our programs, this is something we really should strongly consider. Imagine that these upgrades would be commensurate with what students would see in post-secondary situations. Very often when we travel with students and they go into those spaces, they're kind of blown away. Nobody knows until you know, and if you know, you know. And so I do think we owe it to students to be looking at how to help prepare them for that next level. Go ahead and move forward. So in terms of the phase that we're at, we have been kind of in that research effort currently. If you look at the flow here, the grant is really truly due December 1. It's my goal to have that done before that November holiday break. That's just a personal goal. But really what we're in the phase of is we're about to move into our community outreach phase. We do have a community meeting scheduled for Wednesday, October 22nd at the Matilaha Dining Hall with a tour of the auditorium thereafter, and really to ask for feedback. The renderings are just the initial renderings. We know that there may be considerations from the community that we want to listen to and that we want to think about from varied perspectives, because we do want this project, should it be funded, to be a representation of community and the community effort to make it positive for not just students, but for everyone involved. We can go ahead and move on. So if you think about big picture here, we're talking about, at least given what we know so far, $3 to $4 million for this modernization project. We also know that there's inflation, and inflation always plays a role in projects. So I don't want to say, oh, this is the exact cost today. This is what we know as of the moment. Our costs and understanding our costs will become more detailed as we prepare the grant. But as you can imagine, we have to sort of pick a target and say, gosh, we think we're going to write for this much, and what does that look like? You can move forward. So with that, today's request is for $750,000 of developer fees. We intend to go to our community and ask for up to an additional $750,000 of pledges. Again, we do not have to have cash in hand at this time. However, with that, we could write up for up to $1.5 million, and that would help us achieve that potential for a $3 million total budget for this project. I'm happy to take questions.
Well, if you had 1.5 million, you could apply for 1.5 million from the program.
Correct.
Yeah.
That would give us the potential for a full $3 million budget.
Questions, and thank you, Kim Hoy. I almost said Miss Hoy, Kim Hoy.
It's all.
So if I'm I have two questions. First, on the, I understand, budgets change. We don't know. It's a moving picture, but the slide of potential improvements. So if we can go back to that, is the idea that if we were successful in this, right, securing the grant, getting community support to match that as well, that these would be the things you would
Like
improve?
12.
Am I just correct in seeing that a lot of the lighting,
Correct.
the lighting board,
Yes.
electrical capacity?
Yes,
all
I
that?
think at the October 22 meeting, we will also ask what are the priorities. So for example, if harder choices have to be made about what to leave out of the budget, obviously safety needs to come first. I think that's critical. All of us could agree with that. But then how do we address those other choices? I personally feel like lighting is that next level priority, simply because it has such an effect on how we do the work that we do, but also the potential for helping students be prepared to work in technical theater. We do have former students who work in technical theater who are members of the IATSE union. So there are jobs there and they can be lucrative. So, imagine you work in Matilda Auditorium one day, but later on you could be working at the Santa Barbara Bowl.
So two more questions I have before, we entertain others and go to discussion on this. But the second question is, can you explain the grant process? Because you said there's two phases.
Correct.
So can you
So
elaborate?
phase 2 involves, for example, number 1, we submit the grant by December 1. Supposedly, we will receive a letter that will determine, are we given the green light to move forward with a phase 2 application to the Division of the State Architects or not? If we are not given that green light, we can go ahead and reapply in the next round. So for example, we'll have that opportunity. The grants are awarded in score order by urban, suburban, and rural districts. So there may come a cutoff point where the money just runs out. And there are some districts, for example, who were approved with that letter in the past, but were not funded because there wasn't enough money, right? So we never know quite how that will play out and how that might affect this round of funding. Should we receive the green light, then we have a whole process to go through with the Division of the State Architects, where we actually have to work on full detailed architectural plans. Those need to be submitted by June. And then once given the green light, then we can move forward. But as you can imagine, there's also a turnaround time. If we commit to doing this, we will have to abide by whatever the DSA expectations are with their turnaround times.
And last question I have, I think you mentioned something about animation. Is there potential here for screenings, for film students?
Let's talk a little bit about that. So one of the things we learned when we were involved with the production of Something Rotten is the ability to download, for example, from MTI, Music Theater International, to download actual animations. And those animations can then help to provide the backdrop with the appropriate projector. We, in fact, have the appropriate projector from Digital Media. That's an acquisition that they've acquired. But we don't have the right infrastructure to be able to use it. So big picture is, imagine a situation where a student creates this incredible idea that something they want to stage, but they want to collaborate with a digital media student on animations. So imagine you're creating choreography, but then there's a whole set of images behind the dancers while they're dancing, but the image is being projected way up high and with a specific kind of lens. So it's not like the projection from the front is going to cause the dancers' bodies to create shadows. So it opens up a world of possibilities from a creativity standpoint. But yes, in terms of screenings, it gives the opportunity for all kinds of screenings. We have not discussed whether or not to maintain the existing screen. We would want to keep the existing projector that's there. And ideally, I think we would keep that screen there, as long as we understand we might have to move it either forwards or backwards, depending on any of the lighting work that needs to be done. But there is a rich opportunity there for our students and our CT pathways.
Any other questions from the board before we move to discussion? Trustee Alverson.
Since it has to be submitted by December 1st, do you have to have, how much of the 750,000 of pledges from the community do you have to have by December 1st?
We have to have those pledges within that time frame. Doesn't mean that we can't get further pledges beyond that, but what they need to know is that we have assurances. And so those assurances would come in writing. Understand that some groups might say, oh, we're interested, but we don't have cash in hand, but we're going to give you a letter that says we will fundraise and provide this much money should the grant be funded. So it's not something where we have to say, please take out a checkbook right now. That can be uncomfortable for folks, but understanding that a number of our community organizations, you know, they're spending money to buy lights. They're spending money to pay people to come in and do some of this work for them. If they were to consider shifting how they do that work, potentially if we get this grant, that would be a way for them to provide some seed support. But I do have eyes wide open. Do know that Cheryl and I are in discussions about some of the community members, considering, for example, Hollywood tends to consider Ojai a bit of a bedroom community. We do have a list of some folks who have specifically offered to provide some assistance that we will have some one-on-one meetings with. But we will see, you know, just like the $70,000 donation, I don't know who it was from. However, I just want to say there are people out there who could write checks or could provide pledges. And we are in discussion with each other about how to go about those asks and how to do that outreach over the next month.
That's good. I'm not in a position at this time to offer other than advice. I wouldn't see myself being involved with that fundraiser, but having done a number of fundraisers, especially for the hospital for about 15 million, a lot of the success of these sorts of things depend on that silent phase where you've got that initial $300,000 or $400,000 in pledges before you're meeting in 2 weeks. So when you announce, you say, and we've already got this, so you could have a match within the match. So I would,
Great piece of advice.
I would encourage you to try to talk to some of those people as soon as you can. And I agree, the means are out there, absolutely. I mean, the hospital is going to announce a substantial campaign that will not interfere with this in the next 2 to 3 years, and the means are in the community to support that effort, but the silent phase is really important. So if you go blank and just say, we've got 5 weeks, people, to raise 750,000.
No. We have some targeted plans.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I mean, one of the reasons that we've asked the board to consider setting aside $750,000 is so that that's actually the beginning phase. We can say to the community, we already have $750,000. So at a minimum, we can write for another $750,000. We know there's work to be done in this building, regardless of whether or not we get this grant. So we know that we needed to put aside some money, but this is our first step. And from there, whatever we get in addition to that will just be continued matching funds. But I do want to make sure the community knows, you know, if we only get another 500,000, that's still really good. It just means we can't apply for the total 1.5 million, right? So, and there is more need than $3 million. So we are eager to try to get at least a minimum of $750,000 from our community so that we can have a total 1.5 match. And then anything beyond that, as Kim said, also can go toward the project if people want to donate beyond $750,000.
I have 2 questions for you, Kim. You're asking us to encumber this amount from the developer's fees for how long?
I would imagine it would be at least the next year, if not 18 months to 24 months, until we have a clear sense of the flow of how this will go. I know that this is like saying, hey, let's all buckle up and get in a car and hang out together for the next chunk of time, and let's just kind of go on this road together. I just want to offer, I think that's how it is with just about every grant that we write. There's always a, hey, we're visioning this. In fact, today we were working on the Strong Workforce Program grant extensively and working through how are we going to do this and what's it going to look like? And we don't even know what we need to know until we get funded. So we understand that the dynamic is not always a comfortable one when it comes to encumbrances. But I appreciate your asking the question.
And Mr. Olson, what do we have in that fee? It's 2 million plus or minus? 2.3, 2.53, something like that. All right.
I have to turn it on today.
All right.
No.
So we have 2.53 and we're being asked to encumber 750 of it for the next 2 years. Second question I have is, I saw somewhere, I thought I saw somewhere in the presentation, that this would provide an opportunity for our students to get hands-on training
Yes,
in the kinds of things which could then become careers for them.
absolutely.
Is that a part of the grant application? Is it a plus
Definitely.
in applying for the grant? Is it something you all are focusing on in your grant writing?
100%. So for example, there's an entire section of the grant that is specifically requiring us to identify our CTE programs, our CTE courses, the flow of those courses, those course codes that correspond with CalPads. So there's a whole side of that that is specifically designed around that. Absolutely. Ultimately, it's about students and what they're able to learn. We just have not been able to emphasize this within the work that we do because of the nature of what we have. And it's kind of been a hodgepodge of, oh, well, we've got some of this stuff that's at industry standard and some things that aren't. But this would be a cohesive way to prioritize that. We also were looking at certifications for students in technical theater. There is a USITT special test that students could actually take and be certified in those skills. So we'd want to be able to embed that into curriculum.
I guess I do have a third question.
Yeah.
Because I don't see Ms. Radcliffe here, and she's frequently here. Oh, there she is. Good.
Hi.
Have you reached out to the newspaper and other places to publicize the community meeting?
So literally, we just released the information today. We actually sent an email to our industry partners today, actually sending the link information to the YouTube for Ojai Unified, and then encouraging them to watch tonight, or even tomorrow, I'll send out the link to this presentation. And then asking them to attend the October 22 meeting, 4:30 in the dining hall at Matilaha. There's an RSVP already in that email.
All right, and reach out everywhere you possibly can.
Oh, that's going to be just like the work of
Including the
next
paper?
several weeks. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Radcliffe, for hiding from me.
We'd be happy to be interviewed about anything. Feel free to ask.
Quick question, just because I want to drill down on Trustee Montros's first question
Yes.
about the length of time the encumbrance needs to be. I understand if we submit December 1st, get the letter that says green light, that needs to continue to be encumbered. If we get the letter that says not this year, but maybe the next cycle, is that why you say maybe 1820? Would the next cycle be the following year on December 1st?
We just don't know.
Okay.
So think of it like this. We never really know how frequently the RFAs will be released. A lot depends on what happens at the state level when it comes to the allocation of funding. And I'll offer that when I was in Santa Barbara Unified now, 6 years ago, that was the 4th round of funding. We had rounds 5 and 6 since that time. I never felt like we had the capacity to be able to do this work until more recently. And so the minute I got the email, I called Cheryl and I was like, oh my gosh, guess what? So if it's not the right time, at least this is the time to begin building the momentum for that. So as far as asking, gosh, how long could it be until the next one? That would be very difficult for me to predict.
And sorry, Trustee Smith, I have one last question. And because you mentioned Prop 2, this is important for the state, So I'm assuming, because I'm double checking here, this was funded by the $10 billion education facilities bond that the voters passed in 2024.
Correct.
Because then the state will decide when they release their bonds, when will you bring money in that then you can release to districts. So thank you. Just working that through.
I
Trustee
think
Smith.
it's really positive, and at risk of speaking out of turn, I will say that I have heard from CTE people in the past that when Kim Hoy's name is on an application, because of the detail that she adds
No
to it,
pressure.
including your question just now about how it impacts student learning, is just really exemplified by what you've said tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we'll be cautiously optimistic.
So discussion from the board on this.
Well, I don't even, if I discuss it, I mean, I'm 100% for it. I've been on this, I've done spotlights. I've tried to run a soundboard. I've been on the stage. I've played in the orchestra. There's an incredible need in this community for a community theater, and this has been the answer, and it's difficult. In fact, when I first read this, I sent an email and just said, this is, and we also, somebody also has to provide a theater manager through all this too, because that has to be
100.
a place under the purview of one person with the help of others. So nothing leaves. It just has to be taken care of. But this solves the problem. It didn't solve it, but Joan Kemper for 20 years has been and continues to live with the idea of getting a performing arts theater in this community. $3 to $4 million to that could probably suffice to make that beautiful building just that.
I'll offer my 2 cents. You know, one of the proudest moments I've had on this board in this tenure is working with you, Kim, and John Bernthal on the Ojai Theater Festival, and seeing what we're able to do with a very small, intimate space. But as you remember in the beginning of that, we looked at Matilda Hall.
Most definitely.
And before I jump off of that, I'll also want to talk to you and Dr. Knox at this meeting, because we did make some really strong relationships in the community. When you talk about this being a bedroom community for Hollywood, it's time for folks who really enjoy our community to step up
Yes.
and support our public school district, just as John Bernthal did. And I know other folks can do that too.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure we double our efforts there, because we made some really strong contacts during that moment. I support it. You know, I think this is, I don't need to dive into deeper, but before I moved here, I had the privilege to go to a performing arts magnet in Los Angeles Unified. And at 12 years old, I got to work on an industry level light board. And all my older sisters went to performing arts magnets, and theaters are special places where students can express themselves. They can take risks. They can have their community support them. And that's why I asked about the animation part in the film screening, because we also have a really large film community in this town. And I could just see all of these things converging at the same time to really prop up just another incredible space. So I'm at a loss for words, but I just think this is really, really powerful if we're able to pull this off. So
I would normally be very hesitant about encumbering such a large amount from the limited funds we have with all of the things we need to do, including unspoken on the previous presentation is plus or minus $4 million of other projects that we don't have any idea how we're going to fund at the moment. However, this is more than just a school space. It's a community space. Looking at the figures you provided, the community non-school events take up almost half of the usage year by year, at least for the last 3 or 4 years. It's not inconceivable we're going to be asking our community to support us with another bond issue in the future for further facilities fees that we need, and or possibly for some funding for the workforce housing we're going to build. I feel really good in encumbering this money under those circumstances, because we'll be giving back to the community that we're asking to partner with us. I'd like to partner with them as much as I'd like them to partner with us. So my initial hesitancy is overcome for those reasons.
any further discussion from the board? Okay. I think this is an action item. Would anyone like to make a motion? Oh, I was looking at you, Deb.
I'll move that we approve encumbering $750,000 from the developer fees fund that we have for this specific project and grant, with the understanding that we know that we might be encumbering that money for up to 2 years without being able to use it for other sources.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second by Trustee Howerson. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you, Kim Hoy, for coming.
Thank you. And on behalf of the kids, thank you. Amen.
Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break right now. Call the restroom break, whatever you need. We'll be back at 7:22 p.m. Thank you. All right. All right, folks, we are returning back from that break here. We're going to go right into agenda item 8.1, which is approval of new salary schedules and wage increases for supervisorial, confidential, school support personnel, and classified and certificated management. We did have a public comment from our OFT president, Richard Byrd. I want to look to Dr. Knox. I think we'll take the public comment first. Absolutely. President Byrd, take it away.
Well, I'd like to first start by saying, in light of my previous comments, I think it's important that I come up here and say that there is a need for this. Dr. Knox was quite honestly kind enough and thoughtful enough to bring this to OFT's attention last month, and we must have sat for the better part of an hour. And you know, instinctively, I was not feeling it. You know, I think in light of everything that we went through as a district over the last couple of years, I think I was reacting from a place of maybe some PTSD. And but within that hour and that open and honest and quite frankly transparent dialogue, I came to understand that, and this is going to sound cliche, but you know, high tides raise all ships. And as a representative of a large community of people that are very pivotal in our community, our education community, it bears in mind that I could not feel as though I was taking the moral high ground in advocating for continual salary enhancements without considering the fact that we're not the only ones that are low paid in this district. And unfortunately, it's a race to the bottom for us. However, if we can come to some understanding and agreement that this work can be done so that there is equity across the board, then it behooves us all to acknowledge that and to work towards parity. Understanding that these chosen districts that we use to develop an average puts us at 20% below these comparable districts. And then seeing that some people are, you know, on par with that 20% and some people are far below that. I couldn't, in my right mind, find a reason to push back. As we know, with the work with CSEA over the course of the last 2 years, the tremendous amount of work, I should say, with CSEA, re-establishing a new salary schedule, the number of job descriptions that were rewritten, it is a monumental and Herculean task that having taken no part in and understanding absolutely how difficult those negotiations are, I am very proud of my union brethren, and I'm very proud of the work that the district has done in order to rectify what is, quite frankly, a mess, and how it benefits people. Because we are all, at the heart of it, a group of people that are working towards the same goal. We may not always see eye to eye, we may not always agree on approaches, but at the end of the day, who am I to deny my neighbor a little bit of love? So I would just like to say, you know, after having sat with Dr. Knox and Karen Dingman at our meeting, we were both very satisfied with your explanation and your rationale behind this. I think it does lead us to some very serious questions about our own salary schedule and what we have next to do, which is going to be not nearly as Herculean or monumental as that CSEA salary schedule, but still, you know, speaking of CTE, like we came across a situation, and I don't know how much time I have, but we came across a situation where we realized that one of my members has his CTE credential but lacks a BA, and which effectively means he's going to be stuck in column 1 forever. And as we look at this salary schedule, that means he will not get a raise for many, 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 many years. And this is somebody who's offering our students at the high school like very, very highly skilled technical training. And it behooves us to want to retain these teachers. And this is a first step in acknowledging that if we can fix that, we can fix this. And we have to be willing to come to the table and give a little to get a little. So as far as I am concerned, as far as the official OFT position, we are okay with this. With some understandings that, you know, we have a lot of work to do between OFT and the district, and that we look forward to our next round of negotiations, because we wholeheartedly believe that if the last 3 years have taught us anything, that we can accomplish great things. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, President Byrd, as always. Dr. Knox.
Well, first of all, I just want to personally thank Mr. Byrd for those words. They mean a lot, and I appreciate you saying all of that. I could not be more proud of the work that we've done in negotiations with OFT and with CSEA. We all have the goal, and I know you all do as well, to increase wages in this district. We know what we're facing. We know the importance of rising the tide, rising the ship. It matters for the entire district and for recruitment and retention of all employees from all facets. So I just want to say that I'm so proud to be a part of the team that gets to work with you guys in this work. I just wanted to, obviously there's a very kind of long narrative here for the public to read. I wanted to share just a few points to make sure people kind of catch what we've been doing. We know that our job descriptions and our salary schedules have not been looked at for decades. They haven't been changed for decades. And so they've really become outdated for our needs today. And there were structural problems with those salary schedules. So in the last 3 years, we've worked closely with our unions to increase wages, but with CSEA specifically, we have done a monumental amount of work. It started 2 years ago with a brand new salary schedule that started at an $18 an hour wage and added many new ranges. Not everybody's placed at those high ranges yet, but it's created space and room so that in the next decade or two, as we move people or need to move people because job responsibilities change, things adapt and move, we need to be able to do that. And before our salary schedule was so tight, there was no place to move people, to repeg them. And that's what I mean by structural problems with a salary schedule. So we did really good work in bringing a new salary schedule and repegging folks. And in the second year, we looked at 17 different job descriptions, revised them, and did comparisons with what we're calling sort of a comparable average, to try to repeg and get people on par with what some of our fellow districts are offering their staff and wages, keeping in mind that we really cannot be comparing ourselves to the very large districts and the districts with the highest UPPs because they bring in different revenue streams than we do. So we have to be very thoughtful about who we're comparing ourselves to. So we give a little illustration of how we did this with CSEA. We then moved to compare our teachers to say, well, where do our teachers fall in comparison to the comparable average, we're calling it? And basically, we know that our teachers fall about 20% below the comparable average. We're not okay with that. This is the good work that we want to continue to improve and give wage increases to our teachers. But when we looked at that, that became sort of the threshold of how can we take a look at where our unrepresented groups are falling, right? And that's what today is about, is bringing you the unrepresented groups. As you know, we've already settled with OFT. We've already settled with CSEA. You did that last month. So now it's our chance to bring to you the unrepresented groups. With our management, supervisory, confidential, and classified, certificated and classified management, we looked at each and every role and tried our best to compare it to what we felt were similar positions, which is not always apples to apples. In fact, it never is. But we tried our best to pick positions from these comparable average districts and to determine where each and every one of these folks fell. And some of them fell about that 20% below mark, which is we felt had parity with where our teachers are. Unfortunately, though, some of these positions fell very far below. And so the goal of these new salary schedules are, one, to create what we did with CSEA, which is broaden the amount of ranges we have, so we have the ability in the future, in the next decade or two, to move people around if we need to. So that's one. That's the reason for the new salary schedules. And the repegging was to try to repeg everybody at approximately 20% below the comparable average. So now, as we move forward with wage increases every year, we hope and we will strive for, we're all moving at sort of the same rate, where we're all about 20% below to start. So that's the rationale behind why this proposal is brought to you all. We were thoughtful about the funding in total, and monitoring how much we're spending or being recommended to spend out of the general fund this year. We know ultimately we were operating with both CSEA and OFT at about 4% of sort of the total pot of how much raises we should have. So in order to, stay in that range, some of these raises will be given retroactive to July 1st, which is typical. Some will not start until January 1st to that's sort of like giving half the percentage increase this year and then the full percentage increase in the following year. And we've also made recommendations for how we're going to reduce administrative staff in order to have reductions in expenditures so that we can, again, afford these raises this year and ongoing. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board?
No questions, but I'm really grateful for the work.
Trustee Montrose?
I did have a question. I fully support this idea. It makes perfect sense on two aspects to me, having read through it all and having it discussed it with you, Superintendent Knox. It makes sense to have spacing availability for retention of employees and recruitment of future employees across the board, everywhere, for certificated people, for our classified people, whatever. You got to have spaces to put people that match their jobs and their capabilities. So that makes perfect sense. It also makes perfect sense to me philosophically that if we're going to be in the position where at the present time we are forced to underpay our employees because of our lack of revenue, we try and underpay them equally across the board. Makes perfect sense. It's part of the reason we want to provide housing for everyone across the board. The one thing I just didn't understand here is looking at some of the pages, I just didn't get the idea of what the total actual cost for general funds is going to be. I'm going to approve it. I just want to make sure I know what it is. On the third page in the middle, it says total cost of annual increased expenditure of the proposal from the general fund, $290,000 and change. Okay, you see that, Mr. Olson? Then below that, it talks about wages retroactive at 116,000. Then it talks about wages on January 1st at 86,000. Then it says total annual increase 215,996. I just don't know which is the right number or which are the right numbers.
So the first number is correct, $290,493 of ongoing general fund money after this year. This year, it's split, so it's going to be less money. Some people don't start till mid-year. However, additionally, there's reductions in expenditures. So it's also offset by the fact that we did not fill our Director of Special Projects position, and of course, we made an administrative reduction last spring.
All right, thanks for explaining that. It just didn't make sense when I read through it.
Seeing no further questions, any discussion? Seeing none, President Byrd articulated it better than I ever could. Is there any, I'll move to approve. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Brainy. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we'll go on to agenda item 8.2, approval of salary increase of unrepresented staff, childcare workers, and marriage family therapist interns.
So it is typical to do what we refer to as a Me Too. This is our last set of unrepresented folks. And so we're recommending a 4% increase in their salary schedules as well.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, any discussion?
They still going to be underpaid by plus or minus 20% from other comparable districts?
We can do some assessment in this school year to see. They're a little bit harder groups to compare, but we'll try to do our best.
Okay.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Brainy. All those in favor say
Yes.
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 Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you. And thank you for all of that work, Dr. Knox, and everyone, all of our labor partners in that. Now I'll move on to agenda item 9.1. This is the public hearing for sufficiency of textbooks or instructional materials per education code. It is a public hearing, so I'll do what we always do, which is we'll open it. I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second that
Second
motion.
by trustee Smith. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes, that passes 5-0. We are now in a public hearing. If anyone would like to make a comment during this public hearing, please do so. Seeing none, I'll move to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by trustee Smith again. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you. The public hearing has been closed. Now I believe we can go to agenda 9.2, approval of resolution number 25-26-03, sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials. It is an action item first. Any comments, questions, concerns from the board? Pretty self-explanatory. Seeing none, I'll move to approve this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Brainy. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we'll go on to agenda item 10.1, discussion and approval of updated board policies. This is a first reading. First, any questions from the board? I looked through them. There's 3 of them, and I believe they're all mandatory changes. They were all in red font. So I don't think we should have any questions or concerns or comments, but want to give a moment to the board. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
I have a general philosophical question. But
Take it, trustee
since it's
Montrose.
mandated, it's not going to make a bit of difference. But I just don't know why philosophically the state requires us to allow total opt-outs. Just don't understand it. I mean, I can understand some targeted opt-outs with requests, but a total blanket opt-outs just don't make sense to me, but I didn't set the policy and I have no control over it. So just make my comment.
Thank you, trustee Montrose. Any other comments, concerns? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve these board policies in this first reading, or we can
I
bring it
would-
back? Trustee
Yes,
Smith.
I would move to waive the second reading and approve the board policies 6141.2, 6142.81, and 6142.1.
That second one, just want to clarify, 6142.8.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry
got
if I misspoke.
Yes. No, perfect. We have a motion here. I'll second it. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yeah.
Any opposition or abstention?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I have no choice. So.
All right, 5-0, that passes. Thank you. Now we'll go on to agenda item 10.2, discussion approval of updated board law. Remember, we made the modification. It's board bylaw number 9150. We did see this last meeting, so this came back on a second reading with some data that was provided by the district, and up to the board to discuss how they want to move on this one with our potential student trustees.
Suggestions? I have a couple suggestions.
And first, sorry, do we have any questions from the board? Okay, trustee Smith, take it away.
First paragraph under credit, compensation, and liability. It says, and this is in black, so it's existing language, not required or law, but existing. It says the student board members shall receive elective course credits. The code actually says may. Now, I don't know if our past board made that commitment to give students credit at the high school level for their participation, which is fine to me, but I think it would be safe to change that to may. So that situation could occur, but it's not required to occur if we don't have the infrastructure in place to do that. So I would suggest we change that to may.
Dr. Knox, anything you'd like to add? Because that's out of my wheelhouse.
We tend to like may, just because it gives us that option always to go ahead and do it. But if we don't need to, or it's not applicable one year with one student, then we know we don't have to.
Trustee Smith, any?
So the next one is the green paragraph, which I personally think we can remove completely if we're choosing zero compensation for students.
Trustee Halverson, I see, would you like to speak? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I agree exactly with Trustee Smith's comments.
Got it.
Moving down to the next
Yes.
green section, student board member positions based on board authority. This is one where I think the shall can be may. There may be 1 to 4 student governing board member positions on the board. As we described in the notes, could be up to 2 representing Nordhoff, 1 from Legacy and 1 from Summit. It's just how I would, if we agree with the recommendations in the agenda, I think that'd be a good way to do it.
I agree with that.
I only wanted to jump in on this part because I had a thought about up to 2 representatives from Nordhoff, 1 from Legacy, and 1 from Summit. Just my first read on that is even though I'm a Nordhoff graduate, I think they should all be 1. I don't think one site should have an extra student representative over another site. If we even go that route, I would think it should be 1, 1, and 1. That'd make me feel a lot more comfortable, unless I'm misreading
How
something.
many students do we have at Nordhoff that are high school students?
No, there's, let's see, 850 total. Oh, maybe, I guess maybe 7.
7 something.
Yeah, high 600s.
So the only way it ties in to having 2 is that if a student actually does the petition process, then they, it's based on how many students are, at that school. So that's the only reason I liked,
And I would just like to add that previously, the way we did the student representative, we had more than 1 student, and they would usually alternate board meetings. So that was another thing that Nordhoff had done in the past. Summit and Legacy will be welcome to have a board member, but it's not as likely that they'll participate, just given the small size of their high school programs.
I agree. I think it is nice, though, to acknowledge them in this process because it hasn't been done in writing before. And by changing it from shall to may, we retain all flexibility.
And I appreciate that clarification onto why Nordhoff has 2 rather than just 1. Trustee Montrose.
I'm not a big proponent of this, to be honest with you. I view it as a potential diversion. And I could personally see maybe having up to 2 student board members, and they could rotate amongst the different schools on a yearly basis if there was a desire from all 3 of the high schools to have a representative. That's my view on it, but I'm the outlier on that issue. But that's the way I feel about it.
Necessarily. I mean, I'm happy with the 1 to 4, and we don't have to recognize those, schools, but I just think it's nice for them to have been recognized. Whether someone applies or not is another story.
I agree with Trustee Smith, and I think I initially, I'll be brief in my comments. I think initially when I joined this board, I was really interested on a student trustee, and then hearing, concerns that, and I don't want to assume I know what you're saying, Trustee Montrose, but sometimes districts can say, well, we have a student on the board that fulfills our need to educate other students about civic engagement and how they can actually do this, and it's kind of it's a token. And I feel less concerned with that because I also know Dr. Knox has been leading, the Seal of Civic Engagement. An old faculty member of mine at Cal State Channel Islands, has offered to help with that. I put him in contact with Dr. Knox, so I feel good about a much larger, encompassing, sustainable effort to raise civic engagement. But I think it's powerful to have students on this board, so they can see it and that we can hear from them. And I think young people, as always in any generation, are interested in the world around them and interested in the people that get to make that world work and the policies that they make. So I really like it. I could see it. I have no problem with the 1 to 4. I was interested in them being compensated. However, when I saw the data that you all brought back, that no surrounding school district compensates their students for being on their board, I went, oh, okay. So I'm still a little undecided on that, I'll be honest. But I definitely like the idea of having that number 1 to 4 students. If those Nordhoff students alternate, I wouldn't like the idea of there's 2 Nordhoff students and only 1 student from Legacy and 1 student from Summit. That just feels weird to me, but also students can alternate. So I'll leave my comments there.
Yeah, and then 2 sentences down, the required language actually does provide that if there is more than 1 high school, that those positions rotate annually. So we're,
Trustee Smith, is your suggested language that there may be 1 to 4 or shall be 1 to 4?
okay.
Okay.
So on the number, maybe 1 to 4. Seems like we have, is there any disagreement with that? Maybe 1 to 4. Got it. So we have some consensus there for the future motion. On the compensation piece, is there anyone who's interested in not doing what our other local partners do and compensate our student trustee if we have one?
I
Trustee
brought
Brown.
this up last time in this reading. So I'll start it off and let it go for now, knowing that you can always bring policies back and change it. Just because other districts aren't doing it doesn't mean that it's not something that we can consider in the future. I philosophically, you know what I'm saying. Agree with the idea of compensating that, but I also look forward to the program engagement that the students will be getting. And if we're saying we may provide student credit, we could be shalling the civic engagement opportunity too. So they are receiving something for their time and effort that it takes to sit here at the and prepare and work at a board meeting. So knowing that it's something I can bring back, and I may, I'm happy at this moment to not provide compensation to students right now.
And I concur with Trustee Brain. It's last I'll say on this is I was thinking, for equity reasons, we really should compensate. And then I think last meeting, and I don't want to be mistaken, but I think, we brought up the idea of students that also do extracurricular activities. And I was thinking, oh yeah, when I played football, I didn't get paid for that. So it doesn't feel, it just didn't feel right to me when I was reflecting on it later that we have many students who do extracurricular activities in the evening that have to forego doing a part-time job or something and they don't get compensated. So I was reflecting on that a little bit. So I think I'm completely in the boat here with Trustee Brainy. I'm good for not doing it right now, but as always, if there's a need and students come forward and I'm very, very receptive to that conversation. Okay, it sounds like we have some consensus here. Does anyone want to take a stab at trying to make the motion on how to do this? I'll defer
Well,
it to.
Trustee Smith still has not addressed the green items 3, 4, and
I didn't have any
5.
issue with the next 2 pages.
All right.
I did find it interesting, the second paragraph, that students shall be allowed to participate in questioning witnesses and discussing issues, because that just doesn't occur in the Brown Act format, but I thought it was interesting. And it is required by law.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion here?
I'm not sure, are we clear on representing 2, 1, and 1? Was that part of
I
the 1 to
believe-
4?
I believe so, yes.
Are you good with that? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well, I would be happy to give my notes to Ms. Belcher and say that I move to approve 9150, board bylaw 9150 as amended on its face.
There a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brainy. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes. Any opposition?
Yeah, I vote no.
Okay, and no abstentions. And so that passes 4-1-0 with Trustee Moncharge in opposition. Thank you. Now we'll go on to agenda item 10.3, approval of resolution number 25-26-04, authorizing the formation of a surplus property advisory committee, 7-Eleven committee for those following at home, pursuant to California Education Code 17387 is an action item. I'll first turn it over to Dr. Knox. Pretty self-explanatory. We talked about this, but just want to give you a chance if you have anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, obviously, as you guys know, the executive director of the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council, Chris Danch, has asked for us to consider this as they are considering the property, some kind of lease agreement possibility for a resiliency center. So this would begin the process of us to be able to determine not only if some or all of the property could be surplused, but what appropriate uses our community would recommend and whether or not it'd be appropriate to apply for a waiver for this particular ask.
Any questions from the board?
I
Trustee
did.
Montrose.
I have a question. If you look at the resolution on the third whereas, it says the property is not or will not be needed by the district for school classroom buildings. Do we not currently use some of those buildings for classrooms?
We do, but the question really applies to the entire district. Could those students and teacher be somewhere else? That's something to consider. And I think in this particular case, one of the things that we're looking at is whether or not partial property could be used for this particular project as well.
Okay, but I just had a question about that whereas before I sign off on a resolution that says we as a board have made a determination that that property is not and will not be needed for school classroom buildings. Perhaps there's a way to tweak that language a little bit.
Well, can I ask a question? Do we have any independent study students meeting with independent study teachers at Summit Campus?
We definitely have an independent study teacher working out of one of the classrooms, he mostly meets with the online Zoom students. I couldn't for sure say if any kids have gone up there, but that availability exists. So his students can go up there to meet with him because they have the option of meeting in Zoom or in person with him. He also comes down to the San Antonio campus, but at this time, there's not classroom space there for him to have his own classroom.
If we're addressing the possibility that the committee, once formed, will determine that some of that property is surplus, and that's something that can be done, can we just change that whereas to say that district staff has identified the property or portions thereof?
This was provided by legal counsel.
I understand
I
that,
don't know what
but
that would
again, I'm
entail.
just concerned with saying something which is not accurate.
Yeah, I think if I understand, Trustee Montros's, and you know what, I'll leave it there because right now this is just a presentation. We do have a public comment, so I'll save my comment for after this public comment when we go to discussion. We have Marianne Ratcliffe, of course, who's here. Marianne, okay, yeah, I mind that beam. Thank you for being here. You have 3 minutes, as you know, once you begin.
I was not going to talk, but I have been involved with Summit as a community member for all these years, so I feel like I have a comment, and I totally agree with Trustee Montrose on this issue, because there have been all sorts of different ideas and configurations of the use for that school, and I think it's probably in line with what the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council has in terms of the use of that property. So I appreciate that comment. I think it's very cogent, and I would support that. Again, it's unusual for me to speak, but I feel like I do have a lot of background knowledge on that, and so I think you're right on. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. And then now we have Mr. Larry Steingold. Thank you for being here with us today, Mr. Steingold. As always, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. So first, I've heard about the resiliency thing and regarding the summit. We're going to have up to 250 people at Cabrillo, 75 kids. You're looking at putting in 50 to 90 apartments at Chaparral. With how many kids? You're going to have more kids coming into the system. You will be lacking classroom space, that part of the city. So at least have a potential to say to the resiliency people or the fire people, if we have 100 new kids, some bar to reach, we're going to need something. Where are we going to get it? Go out for more money to build more classrooms? Is there a way to get it back? Is there a way to do something? Is there part of it? Because you're going to come up against this. Because isn't that the goal? More kids? I mean, where are you going to put them? I mean, by the bowling alley? Seriously. So consider that, because that's what's going to happen. So it could happen. And if it does happen, this happens back east all the time. They get rid of the schools because demographics change. Then demographics turn again. And now they're going to go out and build more schools because they get rid of them. They turn them into apartment complexes. So, or what have you. So.
Thank you, Mr. Steingold. Okay, that's it for public comment. Now we can go to the discussion portion.
Is there a possibility that we can approve upon staff checking with legal counsel to see if that language can be added, or do we just have to bring it back?
I think it's a great question, Trustee Brainy, because, you know,
I don't think
the last thing I want to do is hold up the process for this. But if I understand Trustee Moncharsh's, you know, concern, it's one that I share, that the third whereas seems very definitive, and I guess I'm just new to the 7-Eleven process.
At the time of delivery to another property, it doesn't necessarily mean at the 7-Eleven. So I don't know if that is helpful or not.
I don't want to approve a misstatement, period. All I'm suggesting is you take that third whereas paragraph and you change it to read, whereas district staff has identified the property or portions thereof as potential surplus property, since it is property or portions thereof, which is not or will not be needed. Just add those 3 words in those 2 places, amend that whereas, and then go forward and approve this resolution. That's what I'm suggesting.
So are you willing, can we do this? Can we approve it with those edits? I don't know if it works on a resolution.
Of course we can. This language was just given to us by district council because it's typical standard lawyers language that they use. One size fits all for everything. So
you're saying we can?
We can change it. We
Okay.
can
So then
can approve the resolution as we amend it if we choose to.
Great.
Well,
Can we?
I'll also just back up 1 second to say that what we just heard from the superintendent is that usually it's currently being used 1 classroom. We have classroom space within the district to accommodate that. So I don't think at this moment that is an untrue statement. And I think that we are doing this to present it to the 7-Eleven committee, and their discussions and their findings will look into all of those things as well.
Sorry, but I disagree because the way it reads now, it says it is property which is not or will not be. It leaves no language. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I'm not willing to say we will never need that property
It also
for
says at
classroom
the
space.
time of delivery of title or possession of the property to another party, which we might not,
Well,
it's also a different time.
I think the word potential is key in this this spot as well. We're saying it's potential surplus property, and really this is the job of the 7-Eleven committee to review all of this and bring back a recommendation. I said would also add that it is actually already surplus. Like that is the last status of it. So regardless of the fact that we're using it for a classroom or may need it in the future, really this is about assessing that again in the current needs and the current data, and then determining if we determine it to be surplus or a portion to be surplus, what needs or what desires the community has for its use.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion here? Because I think so. I'll just state what I don't want to do. There's a legal question that I don't have an answer to, and I know we have a trustee who is a lawyer, but we don't have legal counsel right here, and I don't want to hold up the process that I think a lot of us are interested in this process moving forward. So I'm a little torn here. Trustee Halverson.
Well, is it, I mean, I'm trying to find some other language without having to change any language. So, and Trustee Smith, you were on a 7-Eleven committee, correct?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay. So then I'm just going to go with the bottom of page 1. item D in that whereas it says makes a final determination of limits of tolerance of use of space in real property. To me, I could interpret that as you may use half of the property. I don't think that we're saying that the entire property is necessarily going to be deemed available. So I think that whereas allows the 7-Eleven community to say, given all that we have studied, we feel that the eastern half of the property can be, or the western half can be used for this. I think they have that purview to make that determination, not an all or none purview. And I agree that I would like to move it ahead, not hold the process.
They'll always have that purview regardless. All I'm saying is the factual predicate in the third paragraph is not, in my opinion, an accurate one that I can say would be accurate forever. They'll always have the purview when they come back to us with their recommendation to tell us what they think we should do with that property.
So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we accept the resolution as written. Accept the resolution as written.
A second.
Second by Trustee Smith. All those in favor say yes.
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 All those opposed say no.
No.
All those, well, no more abstentions. So that passes 4-1-0. Trustee Moncharsh in opposition. Thank you. Now we'll go on to agenda item. Sorry, almost forgot. We have a new agenda item. This is 10.4. We had an emergency addition to this before the meeting to discuss the dates of our November 2025 regular board meeting as well as our December 2025 regular board meeting. We're going to try to reschedule them for some conflicts here. So first we'll start with the November board meeting. Trustee Halverson, do you want to?
Yeah, I simply have a conflict. I'm out of the country in a time zone that's would be difficult for me to participate, and I'm not there on business purposes, so I cannot Zoom in anyway. So, but I would like, if only if it is if the entire board is able to, if I'm not putting anybody else at jeopardy, to request that we move that to the following Wednesday, the 19th.
Do we have a proposed change of date for our Wednesday meeting to the following Wednesday, November 19th, correct? Same
Correct.
time, same location, just November 19th instead of November 12th. That works for me. Looking around, I see it works for Trustee Smith.
No objection.
Works to Trustee Moncharsh, Dr. Knox. Trustee Brainy, does that work for you?
There's a Thanksgiving break? No.
No, it's
Okay,
following.
thank God, sorry. Okay, I was going to have to say no, but yes.
No, fantastic
for me.
question, Trustee Brainy. This is before the Thanksgiving
Okay.
break, because I imagine a lot of people will be wondering that too at home.
Yes.
Okay, and good, Mr. Olson, perfect. I'm just going to quickly put the. Now we'll go to December 2025. I'll go to Trustee Moncharsh.
I have a conflict, but let's not upset the apple cart because I believe I can attend by Zoom from where I will be, or I can just skip the meeting altogether. So since December dates, we have to do things by December 15th. Let's leave the December 15th one on as is, and I'll make accommodations for myself if possible.
Okay, everyone okay with that? Okay, needs to be a motion to approve the November 2025 regular board meeting change from initially November 12th to November 19th. I'll move. Is that second by Trustee Smith? All those in favor say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. It passes 5-0. November meeting has been moved a week later to
Thank
November
you very
19th.
much.
Of course, Trustee Alverson. Okay, now we'll go on to agenda item 11. We'll start first with 11.1, Measure K Projects Monthly Report. We have our very own Mr. Kelly Haslam. And then I just want to clarify, Mr. Mark Weil, you put here agenda item 11. My assumption is it's going to be 11.4. Got it. Perfect. Okay. All right. Mr. Haslam, take it away.
Good evening. First off, I want to thank you for the approval of the wage increase for the unrepresented staff. Really appreciate it. So I was telling Dr. Knox before the meeting, the bond report's getting smaller and smaller. We do have the microgrid still not finished. I got a schedule for them today that they'd be done completely with Edison and the fencing by November 7th. The sewer replacement, we're going to go out for bids on that real soon because we want to do that during winter break. And we've completed a few smaller projects like the swing set at Topa, the gateway chargers at Miners Oaks and here. And we're waiting for those chargers at Nordoff right now. So if you guys have any questions.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Haslam, on that one. Now we'll go on
Enough.
to easy. It's getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Here we go. Big one. 11.2 update on Nordoff Stadium and pool projects. Mr. Haslam.
Okay, on the pool, obviously the pool's been turned over to us. We had got the keys. We're doing some punch list items right now with the contractor. The fire alarm is going to be tested on Monday. So we're having some issues with that, but that's been taken care of today. But otherwise, I think Rachel has the video, if you guys want to see it from start to finish.
Absolutely. Please
To the
do.
very end here.
Question, do we know when we do the lease back resolution? Does that happen at the next? The lease back resolution to get it back, when do we do that?
And you said we have the keys, so does that mean that the lease has been terminated?
Yeah, I believe the contract itself had a termination of the lease.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question, though. We don't have to
Resol-
take a second action on it. Okay, we have the video, and I'm so glad you started from the beginning. We have the sound. Let's play it.
The camera didn't get Trustee Reyes getting pushed in the pool there either. We have to add that, yeah.
Well, perfect. Thank you for playing that. And Mr. Haslam, please continue on the if that might be it for the pool.
Yeah, that's probably the last video we're going to see of that because the camera's gone.
All right. Do you want to talk about the stadium? I think.
Sure. Kevin was explaining it pretty much before. We were going back and forth with DSA and the geotech. So I think they're working that out to get that through. So we're just on the waiting game on that.
Yeah, and I know DSA is not in the room, so there's no one for me to channel this to, but I'm very frustrated at this for many reasons, as I'm sure you can imagine, and I know a lot of people are. And so the only question I'll ask, and I know I've asked before, but what is the timeline so folks know once we get that green light from DSA? What's the timeline lengthwise, months-wise, until we can have people sitting on those bleachers? Do we know that?
It's in the Balfour Beatty proposal.
Correct.
It is. Yeah, they were nice enough to look through. We provided them and within the RFP, the project as much as we could, including drawings. And so they have scoped it out, and they have a finish date of maybe the end of the first week of August. So hopefully for football season next year.
So about 8 months.
I have a question, might be for Mr. Olson, because I don't know the answer to this. Do we need to, just like when you do roofs, you have documents that are recorded in the recorder's office? Do we have documents that do we need to sign off on a notice of completion at upcoming meetings
Yes.
so that we clear whatever
They're-
title?
They're working on the closeout papers right now, so the warranties and all that too.
Any further questions, comments regarding that? Nope. All right. Thank you, Mr. Haslam. Now we'll go on to agenda item 11.3, approval of Citizens Oversight Committee appointments. This was a great catch by Trustee Smith. It is an action item, and we have four members are up for renewal of their 2-year appointment for the COC. Are there any questions from the board?
I just wondered whether there were any other persons who volunteered or evidenced an interest to be on the COC.
Not yet. I think we were just talking today about getting published the recent vacancy that was created. So we will have a vacancy for a local business person / Chamber of Commerce representative. That'll be on our website here soon and distributed locally. If anybody's listening tonight and they're interested in volunteering for the COC, we would greatly appreciate it. And we're very appreciative to the members that we have at the moment, a great group of representatives from the community who provide this oversight.
Yeah, I thought it was really great that Mr. Wyrick, Steingold, Quillisi, and Porter agreed to another term. And we'll see this again in January when Mr. Hurwith's term expires, but it's his first term, so there's no reason if he wants to continue that he shouldn't be able to continue.
And there's no issue that if there's 6 members instead of 7, it's not like we don't have a quorum. That it's okay to have less, although it's not ideal to have less.
You can have less as long as you're actively seeking applications.
It's not unusual for you to have vacancies for a very thankless job, behind the scenes of showing up to these meetings and looking over the expenditures. And yeah, so again, we're very lucky to have the people that we do volunteer for this.
Absolutely. Okay, seeing no further discussion, I'll move to approve the re-election of Mr. William Wyrick, Mr. Larry Steingold, Mr. Stephen Quillisi, and Mr. Robert Porter to the COC. Second by Trustee Smith. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes, that
And
passes.
thank you.
That passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Steingold, and everyone else. Okay. Now we'll go on to agenda item 11.4, approval of updated facility rates. First, we're going to go to the presentation. Do we have a presentation for this, or do we just want to go straight to public comment for Mr. Mark Weil? Okay. All right. Mr. Mark Weil, if you'd like to come on up and give your public comment here, you have 3 minutes, as you know. Thanks.
See that film again of the pool. That's what I want to see. Thank you all again for letting me have a couple of minutes up here. I just want to start by saying I'm a friend of the district. I'm a partner. I'm a good partner, and can't wait. I'm a big supporter. I talked to Superintendent Knox a couple of weeks ago, and she asked me to put together a little proposal about the fees for the tennis courts. And so I did that, and I think you all saw that. And again, I tried to keep it really simple and straightforward and easy to understand. And again, I'm really after kind of saving our relationship, to be honest, in a way that I want to be a good customer for you, and I don't want to lose Nordhoff. I don't want to lose the courts. So I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose the partnership, but I don't want you to lose me either. Because right now, and I understand it's difficult to understand what market value is with tennis courts, and it's not easy, but right now the fees are going to be prohibitive, and I'm not going to be able to afford them. And I think I'm your best customer for the tennis courts. So I want to be able to afford them, and I want the district to get the revenue, and I want this to work out. I'm willing, I think I said in my email, I'm willing to go long-term and do a 5-year agreement and just make sure that the district knows that they can count on revenue for renting the courts. You all don't know probably, but I do have a long history. I've been renting. David Rogers and Kathleen were terrific to work with the past, I think it's about, I don't know, I think I've been renting the courts for about 20 years. And about 17 years ago, I actually paid to resurface the courts at Nordoff, maybe two. I think two of them were really bad. They were all pretty tough. But, at that point, I didn't have a lot of money and the district had no money. So I was happy to do it. I was happy I was in that position to do it. I fundraise for the Ojai Valley Tennis Club, the Ojai tournament, and we fundraise. That's what I do for the tournament, and we do it specifically to repair and maintain tennis courts around the valley and especially Nordoff. So we've done that, and Matilah as well. I give out scholarships every summer. A lot of Nordoff students have gotten scholarships to my summer camps. Again, I'm not a big horn tutor. I just don't know if you know my relationship to the district and to Nordoff tennis. I think about 20 times we've hosted at Weil. We've hosted CIF playoff matches because they couldn't host them at Nordoff. No charge. We're not going to charge for, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, that's what I'm trying to get at is we are a community. I'm not asking for favors. I'm not whining. I'm not complaining. I just would like to keep the relationship going in a way that I can afford to continue, basically. And I'm just hoping you guys will consider that proposal I sent in to just kind of look at it and go, hey now, you built the pool faster than that. Come on, give me one more second. I think that's really about it. Like I said, I just hope you all consider it, and I'm here. I want to be here for a long time and keep it going and do whatever I can to help the district and Nordoff tennis especially. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Weil, for your comments and for your long partnership with Ojai Unified. I'll turn over to Dr. Knox if you all can kind of just walk us through this because so we can understand it.
Yeah. So this is a relatively new process for us, right? It's not been that long since you all approved our fee structure. And as we've gone through the process of working with people who use our facilities, we have gotten feedback at different times, including from Mr. Weil. And so, we tried to take that into consideration. And the consideration here that we added as an adjustment is some facilities don't make sense to just rent by the hour, right? You're renting them for a whole week or you're renting them for a whole weekend, maybe a tournament where you're on those courts 10 hours a day. And so while we're looking at Mr. Weil's feedback and other people's feedback that we've gotten, I think the hardest part for us as staff is we have such personal relationships and ongoing histories with all the different people who use our facilities, and everybody, advocates for what they need and what their program needs are, but we can't make individual changes. It's not really appropriate for us to make deals with individuals. So we need to bring it back to you with recommendations. These are simply recommendations that you can consider for approval today. The concept is that essentially 4 hours of use would mean a whole day, right? So basically what you can see in the tennis courts is instead of $25 an hour, which for 10 hours would be $250, our recommendation is that once you rent it for 4 hours, you get it for the entire day, and it's a daily rate at $100 per court per day. The second concept, because there are 6 courts, is if you need all 6, we'll even reduce it further to $500. Obviously opening up to a weekly rate or some other adjustment might also be appropriate for some facilities. Not all facilities get rented in the same way. And so what we need to consider is what makes sense for the tennis courts and the users of the tennis courts. I will just remark, it was unfortunately a little bit difficult to see your numbers in the email because they were jumbled. We thought we actually came in kind of close to what you were recommending. So if this is pretty far off. Please forgive us. We did try to take into consideration what you had sent for a proposal, but we tried to do it in a way that was sort of consistent for all the facilities that we thought might, it might be useful to have a daily rate because they might get used in that way. Again, this is just a proposal from staff to all of you, and we're open for conversation, and we can always bring it back with adjustments based on your feedback.
So let's go to questions. Trustee, oh, sorry, did you? Yeah, let's start with questions first, and then we'll go to comments.
I too am a little bit confused. I don't know if we're allowed to ask Mr. Well to come back up and explain it, but is that okay? Can we do that? Just when we get to page 3 of your email, I'm not, if we're looking at it in the guise of how much would you like to rent the facility for per day without lights, since a lot of this is summer?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
How much would you like to buy yeah, that's good. Would you like to rent the tennis facility, all 6 courts without lights? How much would you like to pay per day?
I don't, it's so funny. I don't have the proposal in front of me.
It's,
Do.
I have,
Yeah,
I have it here. I wrote it out, and got rid of the columns.
Bill, help
okay?
me. How much did I propose?
Okay, are you proposing yourself under the commercial or the nonprofit rate? Commercial rate. Okay, so then you're proposing $8 per court for 3 to 6 courts.
Per hour.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I'm commercial.
yeah.
Well, I'm part of both. I'm part of the nonprofit and.
So your proposal is $8 a court
Yes.
for use of 3 to 6 courts for more than 3 hours use per day. So if you're using the 6 courts, to answer Trustee Halverson, that's 8 times 6 is 48. Okay. So you're proposing $48 for the use for the day.
No.
Oh, I see.
Nope.
360.
Times 6, I think, 300
Right.
per day.
But what I'm saying is it's $48 for the court for the day. All right, is what you're proposing. Okay, for use of the 6 courts, you multiply that by 6.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
What the fee schedule says here is $100 a day per court. So that would be $600. So 48 times 6 is
About 300.
300 plus or minus.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
roughly half of
Right.
what the suggested rate is. If that helps Trustee Halverson.
It
figure it
does.
out.
That does.
Except I guess what I'm confused about is the commercial versus the direct cost. These daily rates were only for direct costs, which goes to nonprofits. And I'm also was not aware, I was under the impression it was a nonprofit.
Weil Academy is not a nonprofit. No.
In
No?
the email, it
Sorry,
says that
I was
you're
giving
part of the
the-
nonprofit.
Sorry.
No, he was giving his suggestions for what we should consider for nonprofit users of the tennis courts and for commercial users. So in other words, his suggestion for full day use for nonprofits is $6 per court for use of 3 to 6 courts, $6 per hour.
Exactly.
And for the commercial, it's $8.
Correct.
Okay, that's how it works out.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay, he wanted to give a comprehensive proposal to us that would cover both scenarios.
Exactly.
So my question, I guess now I can finally ask questions. So rather than a comment, but so are you ever anticipating using less than 6 courts when you are there?
No.
So it's a kind of a moot point per court per hour. So you're looking for a full day rate, all courts.
Again, we only use the courts 5 hours a day, but if you want to just make it easy and say it's an all day rate, yes.
Okay, and that's for the tennis tournament.
What's that?
Does that include the Ojai tennis tournament too?
The tennis tournament, they use the courts for 10 hours a day. So it's just different.
Okay, okay, but they're looking, although they're not part of this, are they part of this?
I'm part of that.
Okay, so you're asking
I'm up
for
here
both.
with 2 hats on, but I just
Can I-
proposed for the nonprofit because they are a nonprofit.
Right.
Okay,
So I just thought if you're going to have 2 different rates that I'm just suggesting.
And understand one other thing, Mr. Wiles' proposal is he's willing to commit to us for 5 years that they'll use at least 9 weeks
Yep.
of the courts during the summertime. It's a commitment for that kind of revenue. Plus, he's committing at least one tournament weekend in March and one tournament weekend in May. That's a full weekend of 3 days generally. Okay, so that's,
Could I make a, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Why don't we take some time? I mean, obviously, there's this that's proposed in front of you that you could go ahead and approve if you wanted to, just for the users who, would benefit from this. But if it does come to sort of a long-term agreement, we might do that just specifically under a licensing agreement, right, Mr. Olson?
Sure.
Because this really, this is not the point of updating the schedule. The schedule is not intended for like the long-term agreement that we would want to have with an individual.
and what we built in when we approved our usages is we built in the authority for the superintendent or her designee to determine if waivers might be appropriate from time to time.
Once,
And
Right.
we
The
also,
first time.
we also
Right,
built
first
in that
time.
we didn't want one person to have to manage all of the relationships in the community about renting. So
Right.
that's, which is why it's brought back.
Right, so we have that flexibility, but it seems to me we ought to consider having flexibility with a longtime partner, a longtime pillar of the community, which both the
Customer.
academy's use and the tennis club's use are. And we ought to consider some sort of an arrangement with them that makes sense by way of a licensing agreement. If they're willing to commit to 5 years or whatever it may be, great. So to me, that makes perfect sense. Then we can indicate to Mr. Weil that we're going to be talking with him about an agreement specifically with him, and theoretically, we can talk with the Ojai Valley Tennis Club about an agreement that's specific to them as well. And then
Yeah.
we get back, once we do that, then we get back to determining whether we like the new daily rates that are being suggested as our kind of rack rate benchmark, absent other considerations.
If there's not too much concern with the current proposed rates, I would go ahead and approve them. We can always bring them back to you updated, but this is a benefit to the community to pass these daily rates today to make sure they have discounts. And then again, depending on feedback from the community, we can bring back to you updated recommendations. That does not, if you pass this today, it doesn't prohibit us from doing what you're talking about, which is the individual conversation.
Good.
Trustee
And-
Halverson.
Yeah, it sort of felt like I started my questions and then everybody else jumped in, which is when I'm chair, that's going to change.
Jim,
But
Jim, go
having
ahead.
said that, I
ahead,
realize
Jim.
I may just not be voted as chair. But so my point is, first of all, this is yeah, it's first for the students. A lot of these hours you're asking for are in the summer or on the weekend.
Yep.
When school is not in session, those courts are locked. So we're not talking about a softball field where you can walk out anytime and use it. I mean, we're either making zero or we're making something. That's one. Two, if you look at the auditorium, which is the same, when school's not in session, it is locked unless somebody is specifically renting it. If you stay for a week, you get a 50% discount. I mean, it's right, it's what we're about to improve. You get, instead of $200, I just did the math, it's $200 a day or $1,000. I apologize if I get it wrong. It's a 500 or something like that. Anyway, you end up getting 50% off if you use it 5 consecutive days. So it is, and then the second thing I want to say is, yes, it's first, but remember, we're talking about a partnership with another private school, if you will, in the community, and a partnership with something that's being done for kids at a time when otherwise that facility would be locked. They're not competing with anybody else. So I absolutely think that we should offer something that allows the Ojai Tennis Tournament and the Weil Academy to use it to help pay for the wear and tear, but not to make it prohibitive. And I absolutely think that there's precedence with the auditorium, that if you are going to come for 5 days a week for 5 hours, you get a fair amount off, and that's exactly what he's asking. So I don't think we're violating our,
No.
I'll take the auditorium too.
And it's not a zero. There is no zero in that direct cost column because there will be direct costs with
Yeah.
someone being on staff to go unlock it or review it after and lock
Mhm.
it in the evening, so and definitely the wear and tear. But I have a question. Is this kind of not necessarily for you, but maybe for you too, a time of the essence thing? Because the Ojai Valley Tennis Club's email to us today indicates that, at least one day in October
Yep.
is needed. So I'm wondering if,
25th, there is. They
25th.
have a tournament that they're kind of counting on the 6 courts because they've used it. They started this tournament about 2 years ago in October, and it's just gone great, and it's grown, and it kind of grows the junior participation, the kids to participate in Ojai in tennis. And this is an incredible tennis community. So yeah, I think it's all part and parcel of this is who we are. And I'm so happy to be a part of it in both ways, And it would be great if they could use it. I think it's one day. And then they're using wild courts, and I'm giving my courts to them, for that weekend. So, I'm in. I'm not just talking. My chips are on the table. So,
Thank you, Mark. Trustee Howerson, did you have something else you wanted? I just wanted to.
Jim, did you ask your question yet?
Well, did I emphasize enough that when our facilities are shut and responsible people want to use them and pay a reasonable fee,
Yeah.
let's not make it difficult. I mean, it's going to make us zero, or it's going to make us something, and we're going to be good neighbors, or we're not. To me, this is good neighbor, make it accessible, make it available. We didn't build those 6 just for our 2 tennis teams to play there for 2 hours a day for 16 weeks of the year. I
Make
don't
some
feel
money.
that way.
I mean,
Trustee Brainy?
make some money off.
I just want to kind of just recognize that I totally agree. If it's available and we can get a larger agreement to make sense, that makes sense. We do have to consider that every group in our valley is our neighbor. So if we do that with every single one, we end up where we were 10 years ago, where we're not renting to anybody and everybody's using them for free, which is maybe something that we want to do as a board. I don't know, but that's where you end up going when in some aspects.
Hold on. Just hold on. It's been a long meeting. Everyone's really passionate, but we're gonna stay in order here.
I'm all for it. And I think that a licensing agreement
Just want to make sure you were able to
in
finish your
that
point.
way is appropriate for this particular thing. And I think actually we should be planning further ahead instead of coming right in October and we need it for October 22nd. We should have a larger calendar. If people know they're going to happen every year, let's get 5 years on the books. We can do that, especially in the summer. Let's be a little forward thinking about it, I think would be great. So I'm in total agreement. I just also know we've all been approached by other organizations and other people in the community going, this rate's too high for me. You guys need to do something for me. And maybe we need to take the feedback and lower the prices, which is something we can totally do, but we can't do it to every single person or every single organization that asks and still be financially sound and responsible to our budgets and our expenses, which is our first priority. So I just wanted to say that I'm in full agreement with doing this. I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but we need to be responsible in the way that we're doing it because we do have direct costs. We do have to have an employee on lock and lock in the summertime when I don't know if they're working. I don't know. But
Yeah, no, I was going to make a comment on that too, Trustee Brainy, is, out of all the things we've had to encounter on this board, I never would have thought in my wildest dreams this would be the most challenging one. And frankly, and it's not just state, but it continues to be a challenging one because once again, and we've talked about it before, we're a small community that people have deep relationships with our properties. We're the only public school district in this valley. And Trustee Brady's completely correct. We took a really bold step a while ago to say, hey, we've had people that have kind of used these facilities. And yeah, in times they've put stuff into it, but other times we've had to eat the cost. Let's kind of reset here and make there be an expectation. But then there were challenges. I think about the Ojai, youth baseball league that said, hey, we didn't know these costs were coming. We can't keep up with it. So then we came with, let's have a year grace period, right? Where we're not going to implement the fees for a year. And then we thought, well, what about, I liked a waiver process, but then it was completely fair for Superintendent Knox to go, hey, I don't want to be the bad guy that now has to decide. So we've said, well, let's keep it at the board level. this is really challenging. So I think what I heard and what I like is what Trustee Halverson, brought to us for the theater, which is if you're using it for a longer period of time, you get a better discount. That also seems different than what we're kind of talking right now, which is we have the oldest tennis tournament in the country, if I'm not mistaken, right? So this really feels like for this an MOU or a licensing agreement, right? That I would like you all to work through as staff, us not do it on the fly here on the board. That feels a little inappropriate, but really work through this proposal to see what does a licensing agreement look like, because we know, as you're saying, Mr. Wow, you can guarantee 5 years if I'm hearing you correctly, right? And maybe as Trustee Brainey's saying, maybe that's also the template for the youth baseball league. Maybe that's the template for other organizations. But this has been a really big challenge for me in trying to find that balance of, exactly like Trustee Alverson says, let's use these facilities, but we also have families that still want to get onto the site at Miners Oaks and be on that field. So it's a challenge. So that's what I heard. We can approve this tonight and direct staff to continue to work with Mr. Weil and any other appropriate group in this to try to work on a licensing MOU agreement that I think satisfies those parties. And we keep learning on this facility fee schedule. Does that make sense to folks? Trustee Montrose.
When staff gets together to negotiate the licensing agreement, even though Mr. Weil has said he's willing to commit to 5 years, you might want to consider putting in a provision to review what the direct costs are after the first year or two, so you can see if it all pencils out and if adjustments need to be made, some sort of a provision for an escalation if the costs are greater than you expect, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ought to be in what you bring back to us to consider, in my opinion.
Yep. Completely fair. I mean, I think that's great. That's great.
Thank you, Ms. Rowell. Trustee Smith, anything you'd like to add?
Well, and knowing that there will likely be a difference between the commercial rate and the nonprofit rate, but also that MOU can move forward. And I'm pretty sure if we're only talking about one day in October, that doesn't need board approval before that is signed. It's within the amount of expense that the superintendent is allowed to make decisions without board approval.
That's with another entity, though. That's not Mr.
It is,
Wales'
that's correct.
entity. That's with the Ojai Valley
That's
Tennis.
the one that's more of a time of the essence. So I just want to make sure that nobody's expecting the board to approve that before that October date, that it can happen
Because just to
in normal
clarify,
business channels.
we don't have another meeting
Yeah.
until November. So I look forward to the update from the district staff.
Can you wait for our approval of something till our November board meeting for your purposes?
For me, yes.
Yes.
For the Weil Academy, yes.
Right. Okay, for the dates you want for the summer and the tournaments and all that kind of stuff.
That'd be great.
Okay. And then so
Wait.
the only people that can't wait theoretically are the tennis club that has something in October for one day. Well, they sent an email
One day. It's
to all
one
of
day.
us. That's what
1 day tournament, junior tournament there. They are nonprofit.
they're a nonprofit.
So then this new schedule would potentially offer them a reasonable discount from what they had been offered, which was just an hourly rate times every court times the whole 10, they use it for 10 hours, right?
Yep.
So
Is that $500?
$500 versus it would have been for 10 hours at the nonprofit rate, it would have been $250 per court times 6 courts.
It'd be $12.50.
So this is more than a 50% discount than what they had been offered.
It's what you're saying is true. I'm not the president of the
That's right.
board, so
And
I can't speak
Sure.
for them, but what you just said is correct.
And Ms. Burke in her email to us asked for a waiver at this point in time. The email said they would like a waiver for this time. So it's an issue somebody's going to have to address.
Yeah, I would just say this is definitely a step in the right direction. We needed the whole column of a daily rate because it comes up across the board, not just with tennis. And so this offers staff that ability to have this daily rate for when facilities are used, more than excess of 4 hours. That offers a discount to these people. I will say the other major cost that we're incurring with facilities is staff's time. It is staff's time and all the back and forth. So this is a step in the right direction because it'll quell that a little bit. And
It makes perfect sense to set the rates. It makes perfect sense to have people be able to
Agreed.
come to us and say, I want to work out some different arrangement with you all. And it makes perfect sense that we as the board can make those decisions so that Superintendent Knox doesn't have to be the good guy or the bad guy. So all of those things make sense.
Okay, so I think that's it for discussion. I'm going to attempt to make a motion here that encapsulates all of that. So I move to approve the updated facility rates as described and direct staff to continue to work with the Wild Tennis Academy, the Ojai Valley Tennis Club. Am I missing? Or any other entity on potential long-term licensing agreements on our facilities. Okay, does that sound right for everyone? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Halverson. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you.
So just to clarify, when you get a letter, it's not on the thing that says, can you please waive fees in 2 weeks from your meeting? Is that too late to take it as an action item? It is,
Not agendized.
right.
Yes.
So we cannot address that at this point.
We can't address it on a board level at this point in time unless we have a special board meeting just for that particular item. We've addressed it to staff. We've asked them to work with the tennis club. And all we can do is have staff do what it thinks is best in its wisdom, or else come back to us and say, we can't do it. We want a special board meeting for you guys to make a decision. That's about where we are.
It's been addressed by you including the tennis club in that motion. Thank you.
Okay. Here we'll go on to agenda item 11.5, workforce housing update. This is just informational, but Mr. Olson?
okay, thank you. The update's relatively short, thanks to our special board meeting we just had on the 30th, where we spent many hours discussing and narrowing the scope of our feasibility study, honing in on the final product there. Anybody who's listening tonight who hasn't reviewed the presentations, I did attach them here to this agenda. So people who are attuned to our regularly scheduled meetings, they can find those presentations that were presented on the 30th here attached. They're also on our website. And also, of course, you can always go back and watch the YouTube of the whole meeting and listen to all of the comments and discussion. So beyond that, we've had a couple of follow-ups with the feasibility team, I should say I have. And we are targeting continued progress updates with the board. We had scheduled to finish feasibility originally around the September timeframe. We're now targeting December at this point. I do think we're making good progress. Again, the meeting gave us good direction. We felt that I don't remember exactly how long that meeting was, but I want to say it was about 4 hours. And so the amount of discussion and attention that the workforce housing project requires, warrants itself to continued special board meetings so that we don't have a 2-hour item on a regular agendized meeting. We can continue to give these updates here and make sure people understand that we're having special board meetings to tackle those topics. And so we would love to figure out some dates for special board meetings. And looking at calendars, staff had originally thought that perhaps in sticking with Wednesdays for our board meetings, we could target November 5th for the next update to the board.
Yeah, and so I think we had so number one, let's go off of when Trustee Halverson comes back, right? Which is that week of the 17th, correct?
Correct.
November.
So I'm not available until November 17th, correct? I'm not saying you can't meet on the 5th. I'm just saying I'm not available till the 17th.
What's the purpose of the 5th meeting going to be, to your knowledge?
So at this point, it would be to start bringing some of those, like landscape drawings. So some potential layouts. The last meeting, we targeted row houses and different formations of buildings. And then you looked at the overall map and we talked about kind of, I'll just say heat zones. We targeted, what did they use? The Aliso, what did he call it? The Aliso zone and the Montgomery zone and a central zone. And right. So we had that map. So we'll be kind of placing buildings now within that map. We heard from the board that they're very interested in understanding where 3-story buildings might be placed within those maps if we were to entertain those. And so we would be bringing you that model of what 70 units would look like at 2 stories and at 3 stories, and 100 units at 2 stories and 3 stories ish, both of those, right? That was the guidance. So we're going to bring those on the 5th and talk about that.
Are you anticipating a second meeting?
Beyond the 5th?
Yes.
Then we would get the guidance about the layout,
right,
and hopefully bring a finalized feasibility study in December where we would have the layout that the board chose in November with the updated financial numbers, understanding our ability to finance the project, the potential cost of the project, all the units, the rents, the finalized product basically in December.
Wanted to understand the phasing that you're proposing. Okay. So maybe we can work backwards a little bit then.
Sure.
So there would be, from that meeting on November 5th, there would be a recommendations. I'll just make, you've got 4 options. We're going to choose 70 with no 3-story buildings. And then on the December meeting, they're going to come with 70 with no 3-story buildings.
Yeah, so you would choose that site, and then we can finish the financials and the projections for that project.
So I don't need to be there on the 5th because whatever the other 4 board members want to choose, I'm happy. I'm okay with 70 to 100, 3-story, no 3-story. So I trust them. So you can do it on the 5th as far as I'm concerned.
What December date are you considering?
Again, just trying to leapfrog for giving us enough time to take that data and put it into the feasibility study, and considering the rest of our regularly scheduled meetings, we were targeting December 10th.
That's a day I can't make, and I'm not going to approve anything I can't make on this particular topic. I could make the 8th, I could make the 9th, I could make Friday the 5th, I could make anywhere in December up to and including the 9th of December.
What's the regular board meeting? Just the 15th in December? There's just one regular board meeting?
Regular board meeting is the 15th. Yes.
That's it. Monday the 15th is a regular board meeting.
Yeah, we have to do it on the 15th because of the deadline for financials and stuff. Jim's back. So Kevin, I can do it any day, December 1st through the 9th inclusive.
And December 8th?
We could push it to the 17th.
No.
No. When are you back? Yeah.
22nd.
Oh, you're back.
December 8th. Let's do Monday, December 8th. And then the next week we have, is that okay for staff to do a back-to-back meeting?
Amanda's not here to do the agenda.
We're talking about a one item special meeting, but I have a question. I think I want to have more opportunities for public input and having these meetings public, but I'm wondering how we can be expected in November to set the scope of the project when we have not seen the financial data. Those two go together in my mind completely. And it was my impression that we signed contracts with these folks to do these assessments and give us multiple pictures to look at here, 70, 80, whatever those things look like. I don't know how we can approve 70 units or 100 units without knowing what the financial impact is.
And I'm going to jump in there too, Trustee Smith, because I agree with Trustee Smith. Hearing this, the timeline, it wasn't necessarily what I understood. I thought we gave the feasibility team 4 options in a special board meeting to review and come back and present to us those 4 options. And now I'm hearing, no, there's going to be another special meeting where we're going to decide one of those, and then that's going to be the pathway forward. That wasn't to my knowledge, because I want to get the most out of this feasibility study. If it means they have to do extra work 3 times, that's fine to me. That's what we're paying for. I want us to see all of the options, because I agree with Tracy Smith. The community should see all the options. I don't, like the whole theme that I'm getting at this whole thing, I don't want us to be led down a pathway that we are not in control of this. We deserve, and we as in the board and the community deserve, to see multiple options. So I don't like what I'm hearing about how this is being phased in on the end of this feasibility study.
I tend to agree, and I would tend to agree that I would like to have one special meeting in early December where we make all the decisions, where we have all the information. In addition, Mr. Olson, that'll give you and me some additional time to talk with some of the financing people that we've started some discussions with. And if it means that we're asking those people to let us know what their thoughts are, whether we finance 70 or 100, so be it. They should have the capabilities to tell us those things.
Sure, sure. And, just to be clear, we have presented some rough order of magnitude costs analysis of the projects. The issue with rough order of magnitude is basically more square feet just cost more, less square feet just cost less, and in general, every single unit comes with an unfunded or a funding gap, right? We've talked about. And so the more units, the larger the funding gap. Again, total dollars, we did establish the last meeting that, when you build more units, you get some slight economies of scale, right? So the dollar amount per unit of the funding gap was slightly less, but not substantially. And it's hard to go beyond that until we go further into construction documents and other areas where we can get better ideas of the cost of building. And we might be able to utilize, again, understanding more the cost savings of 3-story buildings or the way we configure buildings. So I understand the ask, but I'm just saying that I think when we look at financials for 4 projects, which I think we can do, because we've already done the rough order of magnitude on the cost, and what I'm guessing the board would like to see is the revenue side of each of those models, so you can really see. So if we say the number of units and the style of unit, and we start talking about rents a little bit further, which we presented a little, we dabbled in a slide in rents at the last meeting, right? But if we establish some rents and the number of units and the style, then we can establish our revenue for each of those, and then we have a rough order of magnitude, the cost, and you can kind of see the bottom line. In November, you're right. We will not have very much information on financing. That is definitely part of the December meeting. So what I'm hearing is you would rather skip a November milestone and move on to December. But do we think we'll be able to wrap it up in December then?
Yeah, probably so. But all we're asking them to do basically is, the financing they're going to have to give us, okay, it's really either 70 or 100. The tweak between if there's a couple of 3 stories here or there or whatever is just a tweak, really, the way I see it. Okay, we're paying them good money to do that. They should be able to do that. I think I agree with what I hear as the consensus here. We'd like to do it all at once where we have all the information, and instead of locking ourselves into a number in November without knowing all the pluses and minuses as to whether we really should have locked ourselves into the different number.
Sure. Okay. I think I'm understanding the request of the board to see 4 units and the financials behind those. So why don't we work with the feasibility team and find out when that data would be available?
And I would agree with Trustee Monchars. I'd like to see the potential funding, possible commitments too, because I'm not going to vote for a $100 million project, which is roughly what 100 units would cost, when the potential funding is only there for 70 million.
Sure.
So you also, that piece of the puzzle should be there too.
We are starting to meet with GFS JPA, who's our financial consultant, to look at the cost of COPs. We've already talked a little bit about bonds, of course, and so we'll be able to put those together. And
there's also a state school board association has a COP program, which Mr. Olson and I are going to investigate and see if that makes sense, whether it, as opposed, and the joint powers people may come up with that, and that may be the one they use. There's all sorts of things we're looking into. But yeah, let's look for early December and try and do.
Can I ask a question really
Yeah.
quick? I thought we were going to be receiving a feasibility study. I was unaware that we were making a decision at that meeting. I thought we were receiving a presentation about what the feasibility team has deemed feasible. So when we're saying we're deciding between 70 and 100 or whatever at one meeting in December, what are we deciding? I was under the impression we were receiving a report that they have then provided. I wasn't aware that there's a next action there immediately. Does there have to be?
well, I would say in order to finish
agree.
the report, so we wouldn't be able to choose between, see the financials and have all this information on the 4 different units and the board discuss and choose one and have the feasibility study completed on that day. So we would have to come back at a subsequent meeting and really
So
say,
then at the end of
okay,
this-
we've packaged everything up. Here is all of the pieces. And the final deliverable in the RFP or in the contract with feasibility is an RFP or RFQ document that really we'd be able to release that says this is the project as we have best designed it and described it, and the board would understand the financials behind that as best we have designed and studied it. So then, potentially it'd probably be an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications. Then the general public, builders and other people would say, yeah, we agree and we think we would get on board and participate and help you with this, and work with you. Or we don't agree, you've designed this for 70 units and you've said it's going to cost 70 million, but we think it's going to cost a lot more. Or hopefully they'd come back and say, we really like it and we think we could do it for less. But that's the end of this phase, is an RFP or RFQ. And we wouldn't be able to deliver it on the same day that we made those decisions of the 4 projects.
And it's also doesn't mean, so I hear what you're saying, but that end product is what we want to achieve. It doesn't mean that we can't bifurcate it into another meeting if you need time to think about them. We get these 4 presentations, these 4 ideas, and then at a later date could be the action item. That's possible too.
Trustee Halverson.
With the feasibility study also, are they also charged with, how far do they go in helping us figure out the financing? Do they say, and we've looked into the state COP, and we think there's 23 million available there, and
Absolutely.
and Trustee Monchard says, and I've found 2 other sources, and there's 50 million there, and so we have a fairly firm idea that it's not just, well, okay, you approved that, it's 70 million now go find 70 million.
No,
They'll
no.
help us say
The
we think
feasibility of financing the project
is part of the
Definitely.
feasibility study.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to come back and tell us, theoretically, things such as what amount of COPs we can qualify for and safely pay off. Remember the discussion of it being like the monthly mortgage you pay based upon the revenue stream. They're going to tell us what gap there will be. They're going to tell us what sources to bridge that gap they've come up with or we've come up with in conjunction with them. They're going to tell us what options there may be, which, as we know, include such things as jail bonds and other kinds of things. They're going to give us all of that stuff in a final product for us to consider as part of the whole thing. And I think it makes sense, quite frankly, along with Trustee Smith, to do it all at once. We can set aside a night and we can do it all at once, and we can decide at that point in time. And if for some reason we can't decide, then we'll just kick it over for further discussion at a further meeting to make that decision. But I'm not a fan at this point in time, unless, Kevin, you have something else to convince me of doing 2 meetings for it.
Nope. Hearing the request of the board, I think I'll go back to the team and talk to them about what we need to produce. And we can work together on figuring out how long that will take. And then we'll reach out to the board about scheduling a date.
While we're there, why don't you just get a sense of the room for time anyway? I mean, I'm telling you personally, I'm free anytime from the 1st of December through the 9th of December. So I'm telling you that. The other board members could tell you what their availability
December 1st
is.
and December 9th. So we're looking at those.
So I would
first 9 days.
suggest Monday, December 8th, and then we have a regular board meeting on December 15th.
Right. We have staff that will be out, and she's instrumental to posting the agenda.
Oh, I see.
So could we take consideration of December 1st or 2nd? That would work.
When are you gone? 3rd to the 8th. And there's nobody else who could post the agenda? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I don't know.
No.
It's a one-item agenda, so small document there, but the bigger issue is, yes, posting it, and the report that comes back from the 2.
I anticipate a ton of public comments as well. If we're
Sure.
saying that we're making a decision on what we're seeing without actually providing any, I guess in my mind, we're getting a report. This will sit with the community for a moment, and we'll be able to get feedback on their perspective as well. It is important to me, and they can sit, get time with it, and then we decide afterwards. We're not going to be able to do that if we have it all at one meeting, and there could be 3 hours of public comments. We have no idea how long the meeting's going to take, especially if they're getting one packet with the feasibility study and they know we're deciding something that night.
I agree. I agree with Trustee Brainy. We're trying to.
Here's an odd thought. If we went with the 1st of December, so the packet would already be ready. If we think that these 2 contractors can actually give us a report by December 1st, the agenda could go out a week early. That might, what's the downside of that? The downside of that is people might make assumptions that are not true, that would be alleviated during the meeting as they hear the discussion. That is definitely a downside.
Look, people. Sorry, Trustee Halverson.
Yeah,
I saw you there.
I'm just gonna, so I'm gonna, I'm okay with the 1st or the 2nd. That's fine. I think on the 1st and 2nd, in my mind anyway, we say, okay, we look at the 4 things, the 4 potential funding mechanisms, and well, based on this point, we think we would favor X amount of units at X amount of dollars. Then you schedule a meeting in January, public meeting. Let's hear from the community. Let's discuss it. Let's let them make public comment back and forth. I mean, I just think, because how can the public comment when there's 4 different options? Let them hear what option we favor based on, hopefully they listen to that meeting, and let them then have a month to think about it, and that if they want to comment, they can come back in January. Because the world stops on December 15th until January 5th anyway. So I would propose I'm sorry, that's going to be a special meeting in December and one more in January, but I don't see that we're in such a rush that we're trying to do it all at one meeting.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Trustee. You're spot on. Is we have to remember we're trying to do something that's never been done in Ojai and never been done in the county. We're trying to build workforce housing. This is something that a lot of people are really passionate about, and we've done a good job to this point of being very deliberate and moving this thing forward. But now as we are getting to the finish line of the feasibility, we need to let people sit with this and breathe with it. And so I completely agree with you, Trustee Alverson. I don't feel any timeline. This thing has to be wrapped up and finished by the end of the year. We're trying to do something that's never been done before. So let's get the information right. I appreciate Trustee Montrose saying November. It doesn't make sense. There was good information provided at the last special meeting. It is not sufficient to be provided again in November to then try to make a decision out of those 4 options. So I completely concur with Trustee Halverson. Let's set up that, was it the 1st or the 2nd?
December 1st is
December
the
1st?
first school day after a week-long Thanksgiving break. And we have staff that usually have 1 or 2 days off that week too. And I think if families are traveling, they're not going to feel like they had a chance to look at any of these documents that arrived on the day after Thanksgiving, and we're talking about them on Monday.
Well,
I think that might be too early.
let's go back to the pending question. The pending problem was that we're not sure that anybody other than Ms. Belcher can put out the agenda.
We're a small district.
It's a new system. It's complicated. None of us have learned it yet. And I can't guarantee. I mean, it's like,
Let me offer a friendly suggestion, and given that probably our architects and feasibility people also will not be working much on Thanksgiving week, let's ask them to get us the information the week prior to Thanksgiving, publish it on the Friday. We don't have to, but we could publish it on the Friday before Thanksgiving and hold the meeting the Monday or Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So everybody's got a week to look at it, including us.
True. It's true. Yeah. Essentially give people twice as long than usual to review the agenda of the packet. Okay. I think we have the guidance we have given.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Peter went to sleep. Okay. All right. Now we're moving to agenda item 11.6, approval of services agreement with Balfour Beatty for construction management of stadium project. This is an action item, correct? Okay. Mr. Olson, would you like to?
Sure. We've talked
For this?
about a number of the stadium project a number of different times tonight. And as mentioned during the project update and pointed out by Trustee Smith, we are on a tight timeline with this project if we want to have it ready for the next football season. And therefore, staff suggests that we get under contract with a construction management firm. We released a RFP, put it on our website, emailed it out to a number of firms. We received a very nice proposal, which is attached tonight by Balfour Beatty, who just knocked out our pool in 1 year time from start to finish, which was a great experience for everybody. We received a nice proposal from them, very detailed, with a cost of not to exceed $161,000. So they committed to not billing us over that. And I want to point out that the estimated budget of this project of about $3.5 to $4 million. If we were to go at this point, our other construction delivery method would be when we get a DSA approval, we would put a bid packet together that would hit the street for about a month, and we would, it's called hard bid basically, right? It would just be the low bid environment for a general contractor. Not only would that take longer because that would it would be over a month before we would have that general contractor under contract to then start working the project. But generals add between 15 and 20%, overhead and profit to all of the subcontractors that they're managing, right? And so if you consider all the subcontractors' costs were going to be about $3 to $3.5 million, then that general profit and overhead would be between $450,000 to $600,000, 300 to 600, right? 10 to 20%, if you want to go 10 to 20%. So This represents a substantial savings to the district. It's a partnership with Balfour Beatty to basically help us dot our i's and cross our t's, and staff will be generally responsible for being out there on the project day to day and managing the subs, their actual work. So we feel like it's a very, it's a great bid from Balfour. It's a great cost. It's a good cost savings, and it allows us to move this project forward as fast as possible.
When we originally discussed this project, which seems like eons ago now, did we have a cost built in for construction management, or did we assume that we were going to go the other way and have a hard bid? I don't remember what assumptions we discussed, if any.
I remember that Alan said that this was like, all he has to do is get DSA approval, get stadium bleachers, southern bleachers to do it, and he was managing it himself. So, and I actually wasn't here during the meeting where you guys approved and you did the presentation about having to have a management company and talking about lease back for this project. I was under the impression this whole time that it was going to be managed in-house, and Stadium Bleachers manages almost the entire project, because once you give the go-ahead, it's all in one piece. I mean, it's all their business to do. So this is a little surprising to me that we have to do this fee, and I don't think it was included in any of the budgeting.
I am did I interrupt? I'm completely in favor of this option. I'm just looking through here, and yes, I see several of the things recommended are the bleacher installations, et cetera, but you're looking at fencing, gates, paving, irrigation, landscaping, signage, ADA toilets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is not a stadium company complete project. Now, I would offer up, because he's still here, I'm sure Kelly would love to just take on all of those things all by himself with district staff help, but I suspect, and doing a remodel right now with a project manager who's saving us weeks and lots of money, I absolutely think it is great to have a responsible entity that oversees the entire project. The bleachers are just the hugest part, but it's not the whole project. And it is far worth the 5% or less of the project that we're going to pay. And we already have worked with this company, and from what I understand, the relations with the district were excellent.
I agree with that. I think at the time when we looked at this, it feels like a year ago. I don't know if that's accurate, but at that time, we, at least, would have been under the assumption that we would have bond manager salaries. So we don't have those. So that is offset a little bit by this, maybe a little greater, but I don't think it's that much greater. But it is really, because of the DSA delays, really impacting our school. And that's my worries, because I don't know sports schedules. What about, and I couldn't tell from the pictures, there's a lot of fencing up there. I want to know if we're still going to have access to the center of the field for things like soccer, if it's within that time frame. Track and field, exactly. Yeah, definitely graduation is a big issue. Really makes me nervous to say June 2nd, we're erecting the bleachers. I
Well-
mean, how much bad weather allowances have we made with that?
That's why you have a project manager. I don't know about, you can say we need the whole soccer season, but you tell the project manager, we are having graduation on this date. You make sure that all the subs are off, you've cleared the field, and you make it safe for people to walk in.
But we still have electrical and asphalt and all those things happening. So I think it's going to be hard hat situation. We're not going to have access at all for graduation, if I'm understanding this timeline.
But we're not discussing the timeline. We're discussing, are we going to hire this entity?
I would just like to point out, because I have personally worked in a situation at a high school where work on the stadium meant that we had to move the graduation. It has to be done sometimes, and it can be done. And I'll just tell you, in my own experience, we moved it to the quad, which nobody wanted to do, and it is now still held in the quad because it was so successful. So we can't be afraid of that. We need to move forward with the work. Hopefully we can work around it and be able to properly use the grass for graduation and whatever sports are happening at the time. But if we need to make other arrangements, we will, because the project has to be done.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember some graduations on that back area that's not really there anymore, but so that won't work. But we've also we've lived through no graduations.
So,
So we can do this.
yeah, I think we have a motion here.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll just add 10 seconds here. I just want to get this done. I want to get this done as quickly as we can, as best as we can. And if we have strong, needs, like Trustee Howerson said, we need to clear a separate entity managing it where we don't have an Ohio Unified staffer who already has other stuff to deal with. I think it makes me feel more comfortable that we can successfully say, but we have to meet these points on these dates. So Trustee Brainy, I think you have a motion here.
I have a motion to approve the proposal.
Just
Sure.
one comment before, if I can.
Sure.
Okay, I just caught one little minor technical thing that needs to be changed in the contract. I let Superintendent Knox know about it, but just so anybody out there who happens to read this thing knows, paragraph 19B refers to something that says notwithstanding section 19. What they meant was notwithstanding section 20. So we just need to change that in case anybody out there wonders why we're getting rid of the section that we're talking about there. That's all. So with that,
With
Change.
Trustee Moncharge's edits to staff, I move to approve this contract.
Second, all those in favor say yes.
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 Yes, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we'll go on to future agenda item and parking lot, agenda item 12. Anything from the board?
The only thing I'd like to add is just an update on math curriculum and how just the pilot program and how it's going with our elementaries. That's it.
Anything else from the board?
Can we take some off? About updates, but
Do we need to keep update on working with the city?
If not, that should actually be clarified. It's pretty vague.
I feel like we are working with the city in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
But I don't know if somebody wants to keep that. What do you think? In the parking lot? I feel like we're working on it.
Yeah,
Working through it.
I think you can take it off. I mean, we have established a 2+2. We are doing it.
Or remove it.
So I think we can take that off.
Update on the Summit property.
I was gonna say, what
Like we're
was that?
working on it. I think it was just kind of sitting up there before we were even, it was in between the fire council conversations, and I feel like we know what we're kind of moving toward up there.
And after tonight's 7-Eleven conversation, I have to say, if we're opening a property and using utilities, paying utilities for one staff member to hold Zoom meetings on that campus, and there may be more, but and I don't know if Rocktree Sky is actually using it also. But yeah, we need to think about it.
Okay, so let me go. How the IRS rebate money fits back into the budget. Do we still need that on there? We had a good,
We answered that.
we answered that today, so I think we can take that off. Reporting on the Fund 400 and Fund 250.
We received that.
We
in the
received that
email.
information today. That's the kind of thing we probably ought to have periodically, and just ask Mr. Olson to, every
Annually report or
6 months or so, let us know where we are with regard to those funds. Seems to make sense, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay.
It could be a 6-month kind of thing. I mean,
Student
we
representatives?
can leave it on just for that purpose, but it's nothing pressing.
I mean, I think we're pretty clear on what Dr. Knox's program for student representatives is.
correct. And
So I
I'm
think
meeting
we
with
can
Ms.
move
Cole Michaels next week to get that off the ground for this year. So I think you guys understand what the goal is with the civic seal of engagement and all of that. I think I've presented all of that and you guys have approved it if you want to pull that off.
All right, did anyone see anything else? It's okay, we'll have another chance next meeting. Okay, all right, seeing none, we will adjourn this meeting